catastrophic start, he had somehow transmigrated into a cannon fodder male side character. And, to make things worse, there was a soft fox girl right beside him who looked fully capable of chopping him down at any second. According to the plot, this cannon fodder role of his only had 3 days left to live. If he wanted to survive, the only way was to lower the hatred levels of those villainous girls. But the seed of hatred had already been buried deep inside the fox girl, Khufu. And now, she had even been framed as having lost control of her demonic nature and killing her former master. So, she was dragged into the square and publicly paraded around in humiliation. She's just a fox slave, and she's already this scheming? No wonder her master despises her. But her master was no saint either. He had abused her so badly, she lived worse than an animal. Anyone would have gone mad under that kind of torment. And he just so happened to wake up right in the middle of all that chaos. Had he really transmigrated into the plot of the villainess Actually Loves Me? But before he could sort out his thoughts, a yellow-haired punk shoved a wooden stick toward him. Li Yuani, you're awake? Then deal with your runaway slave yourself. Li Yuani's heart sank. He had actually become that cannon fodder character. He remembered that Li Yuanyi only had about 3 episodes worth of screen time in the novel. Then, right at that moment, a thunderclap exploded across the sky, and his system finally showed itself. A tiny little thing named Duding, with a downright sleazy face. Congratulations, you have been selected as the plot guide for The Villainess Actually Loves Me. You will enter the story as the cannon fodder male, Li Yuani. Your mission is to redeem the 7 villainous girls in this novel. If any of their corruption levels reach 5 stars, you will die on the spot. Villainess number 1's corruption level is rising rapidly. Move. If you don't act now, you're dead. Li Yuanji, what? Are you stupid now? Bro, I'm helping you vent your anger here. Another yellow-haired punk raised his hand and smashed an egg right onto Khufu's head. Li Yuanyi jolted on the spot. You better stop right there. Touch her again and I'll beat the hell out of you. In the crowd, a green-haired beauty narrowed her eyes slightly. Interesting. This guy is actually protecting Khufu. But Li Yuanyi couldn't understand it at all. He had already played the hero, so why was her corruption level still rising so fast? Then again, it made sense. A rotten master who had abused her for years suddenly acting nice? Anyone would assume he was plotting something even worse. Not wanting to seem too out of character, Li Yuanyi could only force himself to put on that guy's old act and say, "My woman is mine to deal with. What's it to you?" The crowd immediately burst into laughter. So, this guy's jealous. Come on, let's go. That runaway slave is definitely in for it now. Why do you care? Whether she lives or dies, she's still mine. But to his surprise, Khufu's hatred for him only deepened, because she knew the torture waiting for her next would be even crueler. Yet, Li Yuanyu's tone sounded noticeably different from before. Get up, come home with me. And that subtle change made her loosen her grip on the stone she had been preparing to use against him. But when Li Yuanyi noticed that the beauty from before was still standing there, and that there was clearly something different in her eyes, he could only keep imitating that bastard's old tone and bark out, "Move it, keep stalling, and I'll break your legs." But Khufu was already covered in wounds, and her legs gave out uncontrollably. She then slipped and collapsed helplessly to the ground. Li Yuanyi sighed inwardly. Such a good girl, and she'd been reduced to this. Good thing he had come. When he learned that, as a beginner, he only had 10,000 points, he still gritted his teeth and spent the outrageous sum of 2 points on a dress, treating it as an apology to Khufu for what that bastard before him had done. That night, Khufu slowly came to. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw Li Yuanyi grinning as he held out a bowl of medicine. Instead of calming her down, the sight merely scared her half to death. She thought Li Yuanyi was handing her a bowl of poison, so she refused to drink it. Drink it, now. I don't want anyone dying in my house. Khufu hardened her heart and chugged the whole bowl in one go. Then, she stubbornly lifted her chin. Whatever else you've got, bring it on. All she hated was that her power had been sealed. If she could have died cleanly and quickly, that would have been better than staying alive just to suffer under him. But instead, Li Yuanyi tossed a set of women's clothes at her. Give up on that death wish. Even if you die, I'll still whip your corpse. Get changed, then eat. What he failed to notice was a green python slowly slithering across the roof beam above them. Anyone could tell she was watching his every move. A moment later, the snake transformed into the same beauty from earlier and appeared outside the room. Did I really see it wrong back then? No, for a moment there, it really felt like he'd become a different person. But as long as he keeps abusing Khufu like always, I'll still have my chance. Inside the room, however, Khufu had not touched a single bite. Seeing that, Li Yuni had no choice but to keep acting. This is all you deserve to eat. And look at what you're wearing. Someone might actually think I've got no standards. Change into that, now. And as for the food, leave even one bite behind and I'll dump the whole thing on your head. Li Yuanyi cursed inwardly. He knew she was still afraid the food might be poisoned. Here, I'll take the first bite for you. After that, he deliberately cursed under his breath and slammed the door behind him as he left. Once Khufu was sure Li Yuanyi had really gone, she lunged at the food. Maybe it was because she had gone far too long without a full meal. But the girl suddenly burst into tears with a broken sob. And, for the first time, her corruption level finally showed signs of dropping. Li Yuanyi clicked his tongue inwardly. Such a cute little girl, and that bastard from before still managed to treat her like this. Even the author who wrote this mess had to be twisted in the head. Thinking of that, he spent a measly 99 cents on a bargain bin medical kit, steadied himself, then kicked the door open in one hard strike. Khufu, who had been eating in big mouthfuls, jumped in fright. Only then did Li Yuanyi remember that she was injured, which was why she had been eating so slowly in the first place. Sit down and keep eating. And if you leave leftovers, you already know what'll happen. Seeing the girl sit there looking all pitiful and wronged, Li Yuanyi sat down beside her and started rummaging through his pocket. Khufu stole a glance out of the corner of her eye and thought to herself, looks like he's come up with some new way to torment me again. But to her surprise, what Li Yuanyi pulled out was a piece of mediated cotton, which he pressed right onto her wound. The pain made her whole body jolt, and her heart instantly tightened. Of course, he's poisoning me again. Li Yuanyi leaned in a little closer and said coldly, keep eating. Don't stop. Even if he explained that it was just an alcohol swab, she would not understand it anyway. And hold out that injured hand too. Every wound needs to hurt once. After saying that, he turned around with forced swagger, hands in his pockets, and walked off. The thing he used on me just now, it was not poison. Staring at that broken, drafty door as it slammed shut, Khufu could not help murmuring, "This is your room?" Meanwhile, the moment Li Yuanyi stepped outside, he was freezing like crazy. But as long as he could get through tonight, it would all be worth it. He refused to believe Khufu's corruption level would not drop tomorrow. But to his surprise, things did not go the way he expected at all. The next day, Khufu's corruption level not only failed to drop, it actually went up. That makes no sense. Wait, could it be that the bastard who used to own this body had been such a slob that the whole body practically smelled sour by now? At that moment, doubting chimed in. Think about it. If you were Khufu and a clean, fresh, practically glowing, handsome guy showed up in front of you, would your heart move or not? Then, what are you waiting for? Get me some toiletries already. When that drafty, broken door was pushed open again, an absurdly handsome man walked in. Khufu covered her mouth in shock, too stunned to say a word. Li Yuanyi instantly felt pleased with himself. See? Pretty stunning, right? But the next second, he frowned. Hey, why are you standing so far away from me? The moment Duding suddenly sounded another warning. Li Yuanyi genuinely could not understand it. I'm this handsome now, so why is she still blackening? Then again, it made sense. After the way that bastard from before abused her, his sudden act of kindness now would naturally put her on guard. So Li Yuanyi immediately switched expressions and snapped. Didn't I already give you new clothes? Go change right now. Quit standing around with that miserable face all day. Are you trying to make me lose face in front of the whole village? I'll say it one more time. Go change. Khufu's whole body stiffened, and she said softly, I should go make dinner. Make what? The food you cook is so bad, even a dog would spit it out. After saying that, Li Yuanyi turned and left, looking both ridiculously handsome and weirdly aggrieved. Watching his retreating back, Khufu lowered her head and looked again at the clothes he had given her. She could not help recalling everything Li Yuanyi had done for her over the past 2 days. She was nothing more than a slave who had stood by and let him die, and had even tried to run away. Yet he had not gotten angry at all. Instead, he had even treated her wounds with care. Right then, a little devil suddenly popped up in her mind. Enough. A man who wanted to beat you 24/7, and you still dare believe him? What good intentions could he possibly have? Stay on guard at all times. Khufu immediately shook her head along with it. Right. A person like him could not possibly have changed his nature all of a sudden. Outside, Li Yuanyi smugly showed off to Doding. See? Women are easy, put them in pretty clothes, make them happy, and the affection goes right up. The next second, Duding hit him with a brutal reality check. Khufu's corruption level has risen by 0.3. What? I can't do this anymore. Grinding his teeth, Li Yuani muttered, "So she's really refusing to change into the clothes I gave her, huh? Fine. If it's about being ruthless, I can be even harsher than the bastard who came before me." Dao Ding praised his little rehearsal to the skies. But honestly, Li Yuani really was working himself to death just to keep the act from falling apart. The next second, he immediately put on the nasty expression he had just practiced and shouted into the room, "Where are you? Get out here. I gave you new clothes and you still won't put them on? What, you think they're beneath you? Did I tell you to gather all that firewood? Now your wounds have split open, and I'm the one who has to spend money treating you." Khufu was so scolded into confusion that she stammered, Then, what should I? You should clean yourself up and go bathe. And you'd better scrub yourself clean for me." Khufu's heart sank all over again. So he really was still the same Li Yuani after all. She even hated herself a little for having actually felt a flicker of hope just now, thinking he might have grown a conscience. Clearly, he was never going to change. In order to make Khufu lower her guard, Li Yuani deliberately added in a cold tone, "Go wash up. I'm heading out for a bit. Other people's maids have hotter bodies and prettier faces than you. I can just take a walk outside and feast my eyes. Who'd care to look at you? Hurry up and wash." But in truth, Li Yuani was practically going gray outside the room, just trying to make sure Khufu could bathe in peace. One maid was already this hard to deal with. If 6 more showed up, it would probably kill him. Duding, however, leisurely reminded him, "Once you finish winning over all 7 villainous heroines, you'll basically have 7 top-tier powerhouses on your side." Right. Doubting, you actually make a lot of sense. Before long, Khufu finished bathing, changed into the new clothes, and shyly stole glances at Li Yuani's reaction. Li Yuani was stunned on the spot. Damn, she looked absolutely breathtaking. At this rate, he would have to prepare every possible style for her in the future. But for now, he absolutely could not let her get cocky. So he forced himself to say, "Not bad, it's passable, pretty average really." Khufu's expression instantly fell. He isn't satisfied. To break the awkward silence, Li Yuani quickly added, "Since you're done cleaning up, stay by my side tonight. Protect your master properly. If I wake up in the middle of the night and find you missing from the room, I will punish you." Sure enough, by talking to her in the same attitude as the bastard from before, Li Yuani finally got Khufu to stop blackening for the moment. Her guard against him even started easing a little. And another thing, don't do any heavy work for the next few days. If your injuries get worse, I'm the one who'll have to spend money treating you. Khufu froze for a moment. So that's why he's only worried about my injuries, because he doesn't want to spend the money. Her eyes started shimmering with tears before she even realized it. But maybe this was fine too. Even though her escape had failed, at least she had survived. And somehow, life right now did not feel as unbearable as it used to. Meanwhile, hiding behind the door, Li Yuani was suddenly alerted by Duding. Khufu's corruption level has dropped sharply. It finally worked. At this rate, you'll definitely be able to max out her affection. But then, in the middle of the night, Li Yuani suddenly heard a strange rustling sound coming from inside the room. And what he saw next scared him so badly that he shot upright in bed. "Khufu, what are you trying to do? Stop right now." Khufu looked utterly confused. "Master, wasn't it you who said you wanted?" "That's not what I meant," Li Yuani blurted out, pinching his nose hard to keep it from bleeding. Everything had to follow a process. One wrong move, and if the Villainesses' corruption level shot straight to max, he would be completely done for. He hurriedly explained, "You sleep on the bed, I'll sleep on the floor. We sleep separately. Got it? Don't overthink it." After saying that, Li Yuani pushed Khufu onto the couch bed, because he had not forgotten what kind of filth the bastard before him used to be. Khufu asked timidly, "Then tonight, are we still?" "Still what? Go to sleep." And this was the first time Khufu had ever slept on something this soft. Ever since she had been sold to that bastard from before, this was also the first night she could rest without being disturbed. In her shallow sleep, Khufu once again drifted back into the nightmare she could never erase. Her family had covered her escape, shouting for her to run, not to look back, just keep going forward. But in the end, she still failed to escape the humans' ambush. Like countless other fox women, she had been dragged back to human territory and sold as a slave, until that bastard from before brought her to this so-called home and tormented her without end. At the thought of it, Khufu's body began trembling uncontrollably. "Hey, Khufu, are you okay?" Doubting immediately warned him, People trapped in nightmares are hard to wake up. Her corruption level is climbing again, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. And of course, Li Yuanyi understood why. A girl born with noble fox blood, sold off while still young, then abused by that bastard from before like that. He did not even need to guess what kind of nightmare she was having. According to the book, Chufu's power had been partially sealed because of the trauma she suffered in childhood, which was why she had ended up like this. And on top of that, her wounds still had not healed. Seeing that, Li Yuanyi quickly dug out the bargain bin first aid kit he had bought for 99 cents, thinking that if he applied a little more medicine, her injuries would probably heal faster. But everything he was doing, Chufu had already sensed. It hurts. What is he doing? Li Yuanyi is suddenly being this nice to me. Is it because he wants me to let my guard down so he can secretly smear poison on me? If he wants to kill me, why not just do it directly? Why go in circles like this? As that thought crossed her mind, Khufu slowly pulled out the sharp stone shard. But just then, a strange itch spread through her wound. Looking closely, she realized the wound on her leg was actually starting to scab over. So what he had applied was not poison after all. Could it be that she had misunderstood this man again? Her affection for him rose a little, and the stone shard she had been hiding for self-defense was quietly tossed aside. The next morning, Doubting's giant pancake face scared Li Yuanyi awake on the spot. It turned out that the book's real male lead had transmigrated into the story too. After tracing the source, they confirmed it was Shi Tianrui, the handsome one, sweet-talking, absurdly lucky, and way more overpowered than a cannon fodder side character like him. If that guy managed to redeem all 7 heroines first, both he and Doubting would be erased on the spot. But don't panic so much, Li Yuanyi said. It's not like we have no advantage. After everything I did last night, I gained a solid 30 points of affection. Besides, I'm a cannon fodder character who should have died already, and I'm still alive. That means the story has already changed course. And anyway, if he wants to get close to Khufu, he'll have to get past me first. At worst, I just need to start keeping an eye on the real male lead too. Khufu, meanwhile, had been woken by the noise, but she kept pretending to sleep as she lay there watching Li Yuanyi talk to empty air. Li Yuanyi walked over, gently stroked her, and said in a soft voice, "Be good, little fox. Sleep well, and stay home waiting for me." Not until he tiptoed his way out the door did Khufu dare believe what she had just heard. The man who used to bully her every single day had actually called her Little Fox. More and more, it felt as if he really had become a completely different person. Out in the countryside, Li Yuanyi was already happily making plans. Next time he would bring Chufu out here, stage a beast attack, swoop in like a hero to save her, and maybe even get himself a little injured in the process. He refused to believe she still would not be moved after that. Just then, he suddenly went on alert. "Who's there? Who is it? Stop sneaking around and come out." A girl stepped out and said, "Why are you yelling like that?" "Relax, we're from the same village. We saw you in the square last time, remember? Your name's Li Yuanyi, right?" Only then did Li Yuanyi remember that she was the green-haired girl who had paid special attention to him that day. The other 2 girls beside her immediately started whispering to each other. "So that's Li Yuanyi? I heard he was filthy, ugly, and always bullied the slave in his house. But he actually looks pretty good, kinda handsome even." Li Yuanyi instantly perked up. "Ladies, if you're going to compliment me, feel free to say it a little louder. By the way, I still don't know your names." The green-haired girl answered generously. "I'm Ayuan. Those 2 are Tieju and Tiechui." Then she handed him a watermelon. "It's really sweet. Take it back and let Chufu try some too." Li Yuanyi quickly smiled and accepted it. "Aya, you're too kind, but don't let there be a next time, alright?" Even so, he still caught a strange flicker in Ayuan's eyes. Realizing he had almost slipped up, Li Yuanyi instantly switched into full actor mode and sneered, "She's just a slave. What right does she have to taste something like this?" Seeing that her test had failed, Ayuan called the other 2 and turned to leave. But before going, she shot Li Yuanyi one long, meaningful look. Watching her walk away, Li Yuanyi could not help muttering to himself, "Doubting, is my memory failing me or what? Why can't I remember any beauty named Ayuan in the original story?" After checking, Doubting replied, "She's not one of the 7 heroines at all. My guess is, you've cleaned yourself up and changed the old bastard's terrible image, so you accidentally started attracting other female characters too." Li Yuanyi nodded at once. "You know what, Doubting? That actually makes a lot of sense." Right after that, in order to keep raising Chufu's affection, Li Yuanyi sneaked into the kitchen, but just trying to start a fire nearly drove him crazy. If it's this hard just to light it, How am I supposed to cook anything? Doubting. Do you have a lighter? Hurry up and give me one. But Kui-Fu absolutely can't see it, or my transmigrator identity is toast. But of course, the more he feared something, the more likely it was to happen. Kui-Fu, why are you here? Startled, Li Yuanyi immediately stomped the lighter under his foot and forced himself to act casual. I was just bored, so I came over to practice some life skills. See? This is easy. You just spin it fast enough and you can start a fire by friction. The more he talked, the shakier he sounded. Why isn't anything happening? How long am I supposed to keep drilling like this? He was already panicking inside. Don't tell me her corruption level is about to rise again, because I look too pathetic. Kui-Fu watched him with a helpless expression and said softly, "Let me do it." She raised her fingers and formed a small hand seal, and a lively glow immediately flickered at her fingertips. The next second, the firewood in the stove was lit in an instant. Even though her childhood trauma still meant her power had not fully recovered, producing a few sparks was clearly still within her ability. Li Yuanyi had known all along that this was a fantasy world, but seeing something like that with his own eyes for the first time still left him deeply shaken. He could not help asking, "Chu-Fu, that hand movement just now, do you need some kind of spell to go with it?" Kui-Fu shook her head. "No. You just gather your power and guide it with your mind." Li Yuanyi's curiosity flared up at once. "That amazing, huh? Then, do your fingers burn when you use it?" Kui-Fu was immediately speechless. By your logic, wouldn't fire cultivators have burned themselves to death long ago? Hearing that, Li Yuanyi actually started feeling tempted to cultivate too. This was way too eco-friendly. No wonder this world had never needed to develop technology. Kui-Fu, meanwhile, was left standing there in a daze. The things he says, why do I understand them less and less? And more importantly, why did she suddenly feel like this guy was kind of cute? But she quickly snapped herself awake again. Kui-Fu, are you insane? Cute? Him? Have you forgotten how that bastard from before tortured you all these years? This is obviously just another act. And yet, when she thought about it more carefully, Li Yuanyi really had been different these past 2 days. He still spoke harshly, sure, but at least he had stopped beating and humiliating her at every turn, like that bastard from before. What she did not know was that Li Yuanyi was currently standing there, talking to empty air. In reality, he was discussing skill learning with Ding, and Ding's suggestion was to learn danger precognition first, which would let him predict danger 1 second in advance. Li Yuanyi immediately looked exasperated. 1 second in advance? What's that even supposed to do for me? As for Kui-Fu, she was still completely distracted, her mind wandering all over the place. Li Yuanyi actually looks kind of handsome now, and he even smells nice. Hey, Ding, look, the water's already full. Li Yuanyi was in the middle of speaking when he caught sight of Kui-Fu standing nearby, her face going red 1 second and dark the next. Alarm bells instantly went off in his head. No way, is she about to start blackening again? I need to calm her down fast. Got it. Thinking of that, Li Yuanyi quickly handed her the watermelon Ayuan had given him earlier. Chu-Fu, here. Kui-Fu frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, "Where did that come from?" "I ran into that girl from the village while I was out gathering firewood. She gave it to me and said it was really sweet. Go on, have some." But hearing that only made Kui-Fu feel worse. Of course, now that he had cleaned himself up and gotten handsome, other girls were naturally going to notice him. And the meaning behind a girl giving someone melon, he definitely knew what that implied too. Thinking that, Kui-Fu pressed her lips together and said quietly, "I'm not eating it." Li Yuanyi immediately got annoyed too. "If I tell you to eat, then eat. Since when do you get to disobey your master? The kitchen's too smoky. I'm leaving. Just focus on cooking." The moment he finished speaking, he turned and slipped away, secretly congratulating himself for running off fast enough. As far as he was concerned, the situation was still under control. But then, Ding suddenly spoke up. "Something's off. I'm detecting strong emotional fluctuations from Kui-Fu, but it's not corruption. Weird. So, what kind of emotion is it?" Li Yuanyi rolled his eyes. "Who cares? As long as it's not blackening, I'm fine with it." Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Kui-Fu's face had practically twisted with anger. She fumed inwardly. "So if some girl gives you melon, you just take it? Li Yuanyi, you really will accept anything from anyone." On the other side, Li Yuanyi had already started complaining to useless Ding again. The system panel had barely any functions, and the points were pitifully few. At this rate, how was he supposed to level up? Ding, however, said in a matter-of-fact tone, "Don't panic. Once the 7 villainous heroines on the main plotline start appearing, one after another, you'll have more targets to capture. which means points will naturally become easier to earn. Li Yuanyi's eyes lit up at once. Hey, doting, that actually makes sense. If I farm all 7 at once, my points are definitely going to skyrocket. But the second he remembered that just dealing with Khufu alone was already giving him a headache, he could not help shivering at the thought of handling 7 villainous heroines at the same time. This massive windfall? He might live long enough to receive it, but not long enough to enjoy it. And according to the tribe's usual custom, every winter, the elders would assign the slaves out for labor, with men and women split apart to handle hunting and cotton gathering respectively, all under the watch of second-ranked tribal warriors. But right now, Li Yuanyi had no eyes for anyone else. His entire attention was fixed on his precious Khufu. To him, Khufu standing over there looked way prettier than any of the other girls' slaves. He kept making exaggerated faces and signaling at her, but Khufu was still sulking over what had happened yesterday and completely ignored him. Li Yuanyi felt utterly helpless. His little maid had actually started throwing a full-blown pouty fit now. Why was conquering these heroines so damn hard? In web novels, building a harem always looked ridiculously easy, yet 5 whole days passed in a flash. Everyone else's slaves had already returned one after another, but Khufu was still nowhere to be seen. Li Yuanyi finally snapped and shouted at the elder. "Elder, Khufu still isn't back. Don't you think you owe me an explanation? If I don't get an answer today, I'm not leaving." The elder was so annoyed by him that he could only curse helplessly. "You little thug, are you seriously not done yet? You're driving me insane. Get the escort from that work team over here right now and ask him why the slave called Khufu still hasn't returned." The escort replied with an impatient face. "How is that my problem? That girl was a loner to begin with, and the other slaves pushed her out, so she could only work off to the side by herself. Later on, she just suddenly disappeared. The others said the Dark Tribe probably kidnapped her." The second Li Yuanyi heard that, he exploded on the spot. "Why the hell didn't you say that earlier? And aren't you escorts supposed to be protecting them?" The man answered as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "We're here to keep an eye on them while they work, and make sure they don't slack off. If she wandered off alone, how's that our fault?" The moment Li Yuanyi heard that, he threw a wide punch straight at him. And even then, the man still kept arguing. "It's not like these slaves are rare treasures. If one's gone, just buy another." Seeing the two of them brawling, the surrounding crowd immediately started whispering among themselves. Fair point, really. Now that Khufu was gone, Li Yuanyi wouldn't earn even half a contribution point this year. And from now on, he'd have to do everything himself, because there was no way that kid could afford a second slave anyway. Hearing that, Li Yuanyi finally stopped swinging. He said that Khufu had only been kidnapped, not killed, and that he was absolutely going to bring her back. But the crowd was still jeering from the sidelines. "Isn't she just a slave? Li Yuanyi, you're getting way too fired up over this. What, you planning to conquer the world or something?" According to Doubting's explanation, even though his transmigration had already changed part of the plot, the plot node where Chufu gets captured still triggered exactly as planned. As long as he could rescue Chufu before the real male lead, Shi Tianrui, then he would have seized the initiative first. Meanwhile, outside the city gates of the Tianshuan continent, the real male lead, Shi Tianrui, had indeed transmigrated into the story right on cue. "You're saying you just detected another Doubting in this world too? Then who the hell is that guy?" The real Doubting replied that, for the time being, it still could not determine the answer. Shi Tianrui frowned. "But I heard Khufu's useless master is somehow still alive. The plot has already started to deviate. Could it be him?" Doubting immediately put on a fawning expression. "Master, please don't worry. A cannon fodder side character like that was never important to begin with. The entire main plot of this book revolves around you and only you." Shi Tianrui instantly looked pleased. "Well said. Once I rescue Khufu, I'll take her wandering the world with me and help her get far away from that former master who only ever abused her. No matter how cold she is, sooner or later I'll soften her into a sweet little lamb." In other words, the way that Li Yuanyi used to beat and curse her actually saves me a lot of trouble. At the same time, Li Yuanyi, who was packing up his things, suddenly let out a loud sneeze. "Who's talking crap about me? No, wait, it's probably that old bastard they're cursing, not me." Meanwhile, Chufu had already been treated as fresh meat by the foreign tribe that captured her. The so-called Dark Tribe was a race punished by the gods, a people abandoned by both divinity and light, rejected by the world, and doomed to sink forever in darkness that never saw the sun. "I'm starving. How long has it been since I had meat this tender?" As they spoke, Their eyes roamed greedily over Khufu's body. One of them, a pink-haired one, finally could not hold back anymore and leaned toward her, planning to slice off a piece first just to ease his hunger. "What's the rush?" their leader barked. "I know you're hungry, but hold it in for now. Just look at this fox girl. Isn't she gorgeous?" As he spoke, he prodded her with the tip of his blade again. Shame she was such a loner and got pushed out by the others. That's the only reason we got our chance. Then he gave her another poke and said with a look of indulgent obsession, "Not a trace of foul smell on her. Not one bit of filth. Skin this delicate, meat this tender, and you want to hack into it right away? Can't you have a little sense of ceremony? Besides, it's been years since I smelled something this clean and fresh. Back when I was young, I had a pretty face like hers too. And that same rich fragrance." What none of them noticed was that a change had already started in Khufu's eyes, and the sealed power inside her seemed to be stirring restlessly. At the same time, the elder was still trying to stop Li Yuanyi, patiently warning him. "The dark tribe specializes in ambushes and hit-and-run attacks. You're not even taking a single tribal warrior with you. Are you tired of living?" Li Yuanyi looked speechless. "Come on, old man. Don't tell me you mean the kind of warriors who got beaten black and blue by me in broad daylight." The elder was baffled. "You never even liked Khufu before. Why risk your life for her now?" Li Yuanyi said in a low voice. "You wouldn't understand. I have to bring Khufu back." The elder looked even more exasperated. And what reason would that be? For a moment, Li Yuanyi was almost stumped. Then it hit him that if he wanted to stay in character, the answer had to sound at least a little rotten. "It's not like I care whether that slave lives or dies, but if those male dark tribe bastards defile her, where's my face supposed to go? Tell me that." The elder instantly flared up in anger. "If she dies out there, then who the hell would even know what happened?" Li Yuanyi only sneered. "No, I'm not turning into a laughingstock because of a slave. Enough. Stay out of my business. If you keep blocking me, I'll beat you too." Li Yuanyi, stop right there. If you don't have money for a slave, just pick one from the bonded stock. Save it. My business is mine to decide. And yet, Li Yuanyi felt a strange warmth in his heart. He had never expected that even a bastard like the one who came before him would still have someone worrying about whether he lived or died. But who would have thought that trouble would hit him this early, right after leaving the beginner zone? A gust of sinister wind swept over him and sent a chill straight down his spine. What the hell was that just now? Li Yuanyi tensed up immediately, and Dao Ding hurried to persuade him. "Do you want to exchange for the danger precognition skill? At least it would give a cannon fodder side character like you one more way to stay alive." But the moment Li Yuanyi saw the price, he exploded. 45 points? Why don't you just rob me?" Before he could finish complaining, the sinister wind came back even more violently than before. In the very next second, the place was completely empty, and Li Yuanyi himself had vanished without a trace. When he finally came to, the first thing he heard was the steady drip-drip of water. Still half asleep, he even muttered, "The faucet's leaking again? Which one of those guys in the dorm is gonna go check it?" Then, the next second, he jolted awake and remembered that he had already transmigrated into the novel. Wait, where the hell is this? And what was that gust of wind just now? Li Yuanyi immediately called Dao Ding out. But Dao Ding only looked delighted as he announced, "Congratulations, host. You've been captured by the book's second villainess, the Princess of the Dark Tribe." Listening to the sharp click of heels getting closer and closer, Li Yuanyi's scalp went numb. "Oh, come on. There isn't even a dog hole here for me to crawl into. Does she really have to be this enthusiastic?" But the moment he got a clear look at her, he could not help being stunned inside. She was a black-haired mature beauty, exactly his type. Wait, hold on. Isn't she one of the Villainesses? Why is she being this aggressive right from the start? And the moment Deng Qingshuang opened her mouth, she went straight for the kill. "Good, you're awake. Come help me make a child." Before the words had even settled, she was already reaching for him. Li Yuanyi's scalp instantly tingled in panic, and he hurriedly tried to stall for time. "How about we build some emotional connection first? I mean, I mainly came here to save Khufu. If she suddenly walked in and saw this, wouldn't she split me in half on the spot?" But what he had forgotten was that the woman in front of him was also one of the villainous heroines. Dao Ding immediately issued a warning. "Not good. Her corruption level is shooting up too." Li Yuanyi was so alarmed he practically threw both hands up. "I know you're in a hurry, but please calm down first. As for this whole having kids business, I'm way more experienced than you, so at least hear me out for a minute." Looking at Deng Qingshuang, who had grown up underground and whose eyes were so clear, they were almost naive. Li Yuanyi instantly switched into serious nonsense mode. This kind of thing is a technical matter. You have to start with theory before moving on to practice. Deng Qingshuang, however, looked completely unconvinced. What's so hard about that? I understand. My parents slept together for one night and then had me. I can just copy them. Li Yuanyi immediately fired back. Then have you ever thought about why your parents only had one child? Deng Qingshuang stopped moving at once, her face full of confusion. Why? Because this sort of thing depends on timing, location, and harmony. Li Yuanyi kept a straight face on the outside, but inside, he was panicking like crazy. If anything actually happened now, and Kufu ran into this later, the whole mission would blow up on the spot. Even if this kind of thing did happen eventually, it would have to wait until all 7 villainous heroines could at least accept each other's existence. Doubting immediately chimed in agreement. Exactly. During the early stages, you absolutely cannot let the Villainesses find out about each other. Deng Qingshuang only smiled, then leaned in even closer. Then go on. Tell me what you mean by timing, location, and harmony. Li Yuanyi answered with a question of his own. Were your parents deeply in love? Only people who truly love each other can have children together. Once there's real emotion, a man will naturally be full of spirit. Otherwise, he'll droop like an overripe banana. Deng Qingshuang looked at him with open admiration. I knew I chose the right person. You really know a lot. The men around here are either filthy or ugly. You're nothing like them. I like you. I want to make the most beautiful babies in the whole world with you. The moment I saw you protecting that slave, I already took a liking to you. Li Yuanyi's heart jumped. Wait, what? Doesn't that mean she's already seen Kufu? But Deng Qingshuang only grew more serious as she continued. It's fine if you like me a little less. I can just like you twice as much. Add it together, and doesn't that make us mutually in love? As soon as she said that, the sinister wind from before suddenly started blowing again. Before Li Yuanyi could even react, he was already tied up tight from head to toe. He had talked for ages, yet Deng Qingshuang had not listened to a single word. Instead, she looked completely serious and said, since we're done with theory, then let's move on to the next step and start practicing. 1 second ago, she had still been pestering Li Yuanyi to teach her all this knowledge, and the next, she had already stopped playing fair and released a wave of dark energy. But Li Yuanyi knew better than anyone that he had come here to save Kufu. If Kufu happened to walk in and see this, her corruption level would probably explode on the spot. Unfortunately, Deng Qingshuang misunderstood him even more deeply. You're blushing. My mother said that if someone gets shy, it means they like the other person. Li Yuanyi was instantly speechless. What kind of logic even was that? A villainess like this felt like she practically didn't need to be won over at all. And yet, in the very next second, his nose decided to betray him and started bleeding. Doubting immediately shouted from the side, don't let appearances fool you. Think about Kufu. Meanwhile, Deng Qingshuang was still solemnly recalling what her mother had once told her. Once a dark tribe member recognized a mate, that was the best possible moment to pass on their power. She even had the vague feeling that after tonight, the clan record would gain one more page. Li Yuanyi hurriedly covered his eyes in embarrassment. The more he listened, the more wrong everything sounded. Doubting started blasting urgent warnings one after another. Master, stop this right now. With Deng Qingshuang's personality, once she gets started, she'll keep you locked up until she succeeds. And by then, as the father of her child, how are you supposed to get away and continue redeeming the other Villainesses? Li Yuanyi snapped back to his senses instantly. When Deng Qingshuang saw him suddenly shrink back, a trace of confusion flashed across her face. Doubting quickly seized the chance to keep talking sense into him. Don't forget why you came here in the first place. Kufu is still waiting for you to save her. I know. Let me think of something. I can handle myself, but will she agree to back off? At that moment, Li Yuanyi suddenly remembered a certain description from the original story. He immediately started discussing it with Doubting in a rush. According to the Dark Tribe's nature, if Deng Qingshuang liked him this much, then she definitely would not want anything bad to happen to him. And if she didn't want him getting hurt, then naturally she wouldn't want him going hungry either. That was the perfect excuse to send her away for the moment. Thinking of that, Li Yuanyi instantly clutched his stomach and pitifully whined, I'm starving. I'm seriously starving right now. Only then did Deng Qingshuang suddenly realize that in all her excitement about capturing him, she had completely forgotten to feed him. Li Yuanyi immediately put on the most obedient and harmless expression he could manage. And even Doubting couldn't help giving him a thumbs up for being so quick-witted. Deng Qingshuang slowly rose to her feet and said, "Wait here, I'll go hud something for you, right now." The moment she finished speaking, her whole body turned into a streak of black mist and vanished. Seeing that, Li Yuanyi grabbed his clothes and got ready to run, but Dao Ding hurriedly stopped him. "No, if we escape now, her corruption level will definitely shoot through the roof, and the redemption mission will be completely ruined." Li Yuanyi immediately felt his head splitting in two. "So I can't run, but I also can't stay. Then what the hell am I supposed to do?" Doding quickly tried to calm him down. "Don't panic. Let's go over the original plot together first and see if there's any kind of opening in Deng Qingshuang's storyline." Meanwhile, Deng Qingshuang had already found a suitable prey. The target initially looked unconvinced, and when he saw that the one hunting him was just a seemingly slender young woman, there was even a flash of contempt in his eyes. A second later, though, she beat him so badly he burst into tears on the spot. Deng Qingshuang casually tied up her black hair and muttered in a perfectly matter-of-fact tone, "Sorry about this. I need to hurry back and roast you over the fire. No wait, I mean cook for him." Not long after, she dragged Fat Tiger all the way back to the cave entrance, calling out with bright anticipation, "Husband, I'm back. Do you want tiger leg or tiger back? I'll roast it for you right away." But the instant she saw what the cave looked like inside, her pretty face darkened at once. At the same time, Li Yuanyi had already done the only sensible thing and fled. He had no choice. In this dark forest, the best he could do for now was catch a few fish and recover some strength. But before long, just as things finally seemed to quiet down around him, a few whispering voices from dark tribe women drifted over nearby. Li Yuanyi instantly felt his heart go cold, and he hurriedly whispered to Dao Ding, "Quick, listen, what are they saying?" Dao Ding immediately translated, "The fat one on the left says you're too skinny and your meat would probably be tough. The short one on the right says you're better suited for barbecue, and is already yelling about going back to grab some seasoning. In short, they've got their eyes on you. Seriously, look at them. There isn't a single proper thought in their heads." Li Yuanyi was so scared he immediately shouted at the top of his lungs, "There's no fish here. I've got to switch spots. One fish isn't enough to eat. I need to catch a few more." But the moment he finished yelling, his confidence crumbled again. "Wait, they're not reacting at all, are they?" Duding completely lost it. Who cares whether they react or not? Floor it and run. The next second, the whole scene turned absurd beyond words. The diners were chasing with knives and forks, while the meal itself was desperately running for its life. Li Yuanyi couldn't have escaped even if he'd grown wings. As he sprinted, he screamed inwardly that this was way too dangerous. If he'd known it would get this bad, he would have bought more life-saving skills. And on top of that, he absolutely needed to speed up the process of redeeming those villainesses. Just as the distance behind him shrank to only 10 steps, Li Yuanyi's foot suddenly slammed into a broken log, and he lost his balance on the spot. His face twisted with despair and unwillingness. "I don't want to get eaten," Doding screamed even louder. "Then get up if you don't want to be eaten." The fatter one already has a sickle in her hand. 6 steps. 5, 4. They were already right there. Li Yuanyi's mind went completely blank. "I'm finished. Where did that sickle hit me?" Then came a rolling, thudding sound in his ears, and he almost went numb on the spot. Don't tell me that was some part of me getting chopped off and rolling onto the ground. Li Yuanyi stiffly turned his head, only to be so horrified by the miserable state of the 3 dark tribe women that it nearly left a lifelong psychological scar on the poor innocent youth he still considered himself to be. Right after that, a familiar strand of black mist drifted over quietly. Deng Qingshuang stood there with anger on her face and asked coldly, "You left the cave just to come find these women?" Dao Ding instantly went into full emergency mode. "Not good. Villainess number 2 is showing violent emotional fluctuations. She'll blacken in 3 seconds. Countdown to attacking the host, 2 seconds." In the very last second, Li Yuanyi decisively made his move, going all in on total shock value and catching her completely off guard. Deng Qingshuang froze for a moment, and an absurd thought even flashed through her mind. Could it be that he really does still like me? Li Yuanyi immediately seized the moment. "That's right, darling. Good thing you showed up in time. Look, I even caught these fish for you myself." Deng Qingshuang was stunned. "What? These were really for me?" Li Yuanyi quickly put on his most affectionate expression. "I'm a grown man. I can't exactly hide in the cave and live off the woman I love, can I? You're so thin. It should be me taking care of you." Deng Qingshuang's eyes lit up instantly. "So you weren't trying to run away. You really went out just to catch fish for me. Then, I was wrong. I thought you didn't like me at all." By the time she finished speaking, she was practically glowing with happiness. I knew it. I really did find the best man in the whole world. Once, they got back to the cave. Dun Qingxuan skillfully began preparing the food, while seriously assuring Li Yuanyi, "Don't worry, I'm not weak at all. No matter what happens from now on, I'll protect you." But Li Yuanyi watched her chop that tiger cleanly into 8 pieces and felt his legs go weak. Thank God he'd reacted fast enough earlier. Otherwise, his fate probably would have been even worse than the tiger's. Then Deng Qingxuan handed him a chunk of meat, and Li Yuanyi went completely rigid. What kind of situation was this? Was she seriously expecting him to eat it raw? Deng Qingxuan, however, looked completely matter-of-fact as she urged him on. "Hurry up and eat, husband. Once you're full, it'll be time for the Dark Tribe's inheritance ritual." Li Yuanyi instantly remembered another setting from the book. Anyone captured by the Dark Tribe knew that refusing the raw meat the girl handed you was the same as rejecting her confession to her face. Seeing that villainess number 2 was about to blacken again, Li Yuanyi could only grit his teeth and speak up. "I'm not exactly young anymore. To be honest, I'm even more anxious about this than you are. But if I eat raw meat, I might get diarrhea. And if that happens later, wouldn't that affect my performance?" Deng Qingxuan looked half convinced, half doubtful, but he had clearly managed to shake her confidence a little. Li Yuanyi quickly pointed at the stone nearby. "Hurry, help me carve out a round pit in the middle of that rock first, then cook the meat properly. Once we've eaten, we can officially begin the ritual." Deng Qingxuan obediently did as she was told. Once the stone pot had gradually filled with spring water, Li Yuanyi immediately opened Doding's shop and secretly started buying seasoning. In the end, he spent 1 point on a spicy boiled fish seasoning pack. But seeing him drag things out for so long, Deng Qingxuan was clearly starting to get annoyed. Exactly how much longer was this going to take? She finally couldn't hold back anymore and urged him, "Can you hurry up? I really don't want to wait any longer." Li Yuanyi quickly soothed her. "Hey, don't rush. Don't rush. It'll be done soon. I'm lighting the fire and boiling the water right now." But the moment Deng Qingxuan so much as glanced toward the campfire, it was as if she had seen something utterly terrifying. A primal fear surged up from deep inside her, and she collapsed onto the ground on the spot. Li Yuanyi, meanwhile, had no idea what was going on at first, until Doubting hurriedly warned him. Only then did he turn around, baffled. Why had she suddenly retreated so far away? What was going on? Deng Qingxuan's voice suddenly turned dark and eerie. "You went through all this trouble just to light a fire and get rid of me?" As sparks kept bursting from the flames, she curled in on herself, tighter and tighter in fear. Only then did Li Yuanyi finally realize the truth. Wait, the mighty princess of the Dark Tribe is actually afraid of fire? Dark energy began swirling around Deng Qingxuan again, as her imagination spiraled straight into the worst possible direction. So refusing to eat raw meat was just an excuse, wasn't it? You never wanted to be with me at all. You only got close to me so you could use fire against me. Li Yuanyi instantly felt both helpless and sympathetic. The second he stopped paying attention, this girl had already written an entire betrayal drama in her head. Thinking fast, he simply pulled her behind him in one firm motion and explained in a low voice, "Look, we have to light a fire first so the pot can heat up. Only then can the meat inside actually cook." As he spoke, he also reached out and gently tucked her braid back into place, then added, "And more importantly, the fire lights this place up, so I can actually see your pretty face properly." That painfully cheesy line of flirting worked instantly. "If you don't like fire, then just sit here and wait nicely. Leave the rest to me." Seeing her emotions slowly calm down, Li Yuanyi finally picked up a few relatively clean branches. "All right then, today, you two are getting promoted to chopsticks. When you eat boiled fish, you start from the middle. That part has the fewest bones, and the meat is the most tender. Here, open up and try it." But it was obvious that Deng Qingxuan had grown up eating with her hands. She kept poking at the food awkwardly with the sticks and clearly had no idea how to use them. Li Yuanyi could only patiently teach her. "That's not how you hold chopsticks. Here, I'll show you. Your index finger and thumb go like this, right? Just like that. Not bad, just as expected. Smart and quick to learn. Now slowly pick the food up again and take a bite." Deng Qingxuan blushed and obediently did as she was told. In the next instant, her taste buds were hit with a completely unprecedented shock, as if a whole new world had just opened in front of her. Li Yuanyi grinned proudly. "See? I told you I wasn't lying. If you like it, eat more. I'll make it for you again in the future." Doubting's notification sounded right away. "Congratulations, host. Deng Qingxuan's affection has increased by 0.5. 30 points have been credited to your account." Li Yuanyi instantly perked up. Now we're talking. Doding, hurry up and front me that danger precognition skill. Doubting immediately replied, danger precognition module will now be installed for the host. Installed successfully. 29.9 points have been deducted. Li Yuanyi nearly exploded on the spot. Hey, why don't you just rob me outright? Knowing it was in the wrong, Doubting hurriedly offered a buy one get one deal and synced Deng Qingshuang's background information for him as well. Only then did Li Yuanyi learn that Deng Qingshuang was actually a half-blood born of a dark tribe member and a human. She was accepted by neither side, lost both parents when she was still young, and had brushed against death multiple times. That was why she had developed an almost instinctive obsession with the preciousness of food. But because no one had ever guided her while she was growing up, she had no choice but to rely purely on instinct for everything. And as for having children, that had gradually become the deepest obsession of her adult life. Li Yuanyi was left speechless, muttering inwardly, did they really have to write her that tragically? So Deng Qingshuang's background was actually this miserable. He even lifted a hand and dramatically wiped away tears that weren't there. Then said, with complete sincerity, Xuan, as long as I'm here, I'll never let you drift through life alone again. That unbearably cheesy line hit the softest part of Deng Qingshuang's heart almost instantly. At the same time, Duding delivered more good news. Congratulations, host. The heroine's affection has increased by another point. 60 points have been credited. Li Yuanyi instantly felt pleased with himself. Man, this is way too easy. It's practically effortless. What he did not know was that the tribe's square had already descended into chaos, while Khufu stood there, glaring at everyone with open hostility. Khufu, don't do anything reckless. The elder has already sent people out to look for Li Yuanyi. But Khufu coldly demanded, why is it my master who went missing? Did you people do something to him on purpose? Not far away, even the real male lead, Shi Tianrili, was frowning in confusion. This wasn't right. According to the original plot, he was supposed to be the one rescuing her at this point. So how had she returned on her own first? Who exactly had thrown the story off track? Back in the cave, Li Yuanyi was still trying to calm the situation. Xuan, settle down first. Deng Qingshuang only looked more confused. Why should I calm down? Didn't you say that once we finished eating we could begin the ritual? The Dark Tribe's bloodline really needs you. Li Yuanyi could only grit his teeth and remind her. But did you forget why you were bullied when you were little? Do you really want our child to go through that same pain of never being accepted? Deng Qingshuang's body instantly stiffened, and a trace of vigilance rose in her eyes. How do you know that? Forcing himself to stay steady, Li Yuanyi answered seriously, because I can tell that your physical traits are completely those of a pure-blooded Dark Tribe member. That's why I guessed you must be of mixed blood Dark Tribe and something else. And no one understands better than you just how much malice this world holds toward people like that. Before he could even finish, Deng Qingshuang turned and ran out of the cave. Li Yuanyi thought about it for a moment and decided that letting her cool down for now might not be such a bad thing. At the very least, the crisis in front of him had been stabilized. But Doubting suddenly shouted, Stabilized? Stabilized my ass. Something huge has already happened back home. Khufu's corruption level is skyrocketing. It's almost at the critical threshold. If it crosses the line, both of us will be erased by the main system on the spot. Li Yuanyi's expression changed immediately. Why didn't you say that sooner? Hurry up and send me back. Doubting replied at once. If you travel back normally, it'll already be too late. This system can teleport you directly. However, coordinate teleportation costs 59.9 points. Host, please remain calm. That price was set by the main system. Li Yuanyi clenched his teeth. At a time like this, who gives a damn about the price? For Khufu, just buy it and teleport me right now. Before he had time to react, the next second he was already back at the tribe. The moment he landed, he immediately looked around in a panic. Where's my Khufu? Your master is back. At that exact moment, Shufu had one person by the collar and was forcing them to tell her where Li Yuanyi had gone. Li Yuanyi hurriedly shouted, Be good. Stop right now. To everyone's shock, her nearly out-of-control corruption state stopped dead in that very instant. Li Yuanyi felt warmth rise in his chest. He had thought Khufu wished he would die out there so she could blacken completely. But now, it looked like she had truly been worried about him. The elder, meanwhile, acted like he had finally found a lifeline and immediately roared, Li Yuanyi, your maid actually dared to attack a tribal warrior. Li Yuanyi shot back on the spot. If you can't even beat her, how dare you call yourselves warriors? Besides, what she did was completely justified. Protecting her master is only natural. On the other hand, When I got kidnapped by the Dark Tribe, not a single one of you had the guts to come rescue me. All right, break it up. Everybody out. Then, right in front of the whole crowd, he reached out and took Khufu's hand. Come on, follow your master home. After all this time, Chufu once again felt the change in Li Yuanyi with painful clarity. As her affection for him continued to rise, another 60 points were successfully credited to the system. The elder stood there fuming so hard his face had gone green. Kidnapped by the Dark Tribe? If that brat had really been taken by them, there was no way he'd still be alive to come back. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, until he finally swore through gritted teeth that if he ever meddled in that brat's business again, then his name, Li Dali, might as well be written backward. Meanwhile, the real male lead, Shi Tianrili, had appeared from the shadows with a puzzled look on his face. How was this cannon fodder side character still not out of the story yet? At his side, handsome Ding could not help blurting out, "What is this supposed to be? Is this novel running on some pirated plotline or what?" But after thinking it over, Shi Tianrili decided not to dwell on it for now. A few deviations in the plot were still manageable. What mattered most was finding Deng Qingshuang and redeeming her first. According to the original novel, all he had to do was enter the forest and he would run into her. Not far away, a giant python was coiled around a tree branch, equally full of suspicion. Strange. Li Yuanyi had actually made it out of Dark Tribe hands alive. How exactly had that washed-up young master escaped? In the next second, the python's tail quietly transformed into a pair of slender, jade-like feet. And it became obvious that Ayuan's interest in Li Yuanyi had deepened even further. At the same time, Li Yuanyi and Chufu were sitting across from each other. Candlelight flickered between them, throwing a soft glow across the faint blush on her pale face. Li Yuanyi was just about to say something to break the delicate tension in the room, when Chufu sprang up as if startled, instantly putting nearly 2 meters of distance between them. Li Yuanyi looked baffled. "Weren't you fine just a second ago? Why are you so nervous?" At his words, the blush on Khufu's face deepened. Stammering, she said, I'll go make dinner for master right now." Then she rushed straight into the kitchen. Watching her disappear, Li Yuanyi could not help feeling secretly delighted. Looks like this girl really is starting to fall for me. But the very next second, Dao Ding sounded another warning. Deng Qingshuang had returned to the cave after going out to cool off, only to find Li Yuanyi gone. Thinking he had run away again, her corruption level had surged on the spot. Li Yuanyi instantly felt his head pounding. What kind of lunatic wrote this setup? In the early stage, these Villainesses aren't even allowed to meet each other? All 7 heroines can't even be in the same place? What, am I supposed to split myself into 7 pieces just to keep up with all of them? Grumble as he might, Li Yuanyi still decided to at least go let Chufu know first. If he suddenly vanished without a word, she'd be far harder to calm down than anyone once she started blackening. Meanwhile, chaotic noises kept echoing inside the cave. Dark energy swirled around Deng Qingshuang as she grew angrier and angrier. So all those sweet words were just a cover. He was still trying to find a chance to run away after all. Through clenched teeth, she muttered under her breath, "Li Yuanyi, just you wait." But right then, Li Yuanyi suddenly appeared with a bright smile. "Little Qingqing, what's got you like this?" The Dark Tribe beauty froze for a moment, then turned toward him, her face instantly lighting up with joy. Li Yuanyi smoothly brought out the little trinket he had swiped from home and said with a grin, "Do you like it? I brought this back especially for you." Deng Qingshuang could no longer hold back her feelings and threw herself at him without a second thought. "Yuanyi, I've made up my mind. I don't care whether our clans would question us being together or not." Earlier in the cave, Deng Qingshuang had already left her own unique mark on Li Yuanyi's neck. Not only to keep him from running away again, but also so that she would know the instant he was ever in danger. Thinking it over carefully, Li Yuanyi had to admit that this was not entirely a bad thing. At the very least, the pros and cons seemed somewhat balanced now, so he cautiously tested the waters. "Shuang shuang, does that mean I can go now?" To his surprise, the Dark Tribe Queen agreed without much fuss this time, and Li Yuanyi immediately decided he would first get some distance, then use coordinate teleportation to head back. But the farther he walked, the more something about it bothered him. She had only bitten him once, and then just let him leave that easily. Just as Li Yuanyi was about to crouch in the grass and start the teleportation, he suddenly heard the real male lead, Shi Tianri, complaining nearby. "What the hell is going on?" According to the novel, the moment I got here, Deng Qingshuang was supposed to drag me straight into the cave. But forget getting dragged away. I haven't even seen a trace of her. How am I supposed to start winning her over like this? The moment Li Yuanyi heard that, He understood exactly what was going on. Since he, this cannon fodder side character, had already seized Deng Qingxuan's entire plotline first, Shi Tianrui couldn't even enter that route anymore. Serves him right. But the next second, Li Yuanyi's heart tightened sharply. No, he couldn't just go back now. If Shi Tianwei really did manage to find Deng Qingxuan, that guy had the official Doding and a handsome face to match. What exactly could Li Yuanyi compete with? Besides, since Deng Qingxuan had already left her mark on him, then she had to take responsibility for him. At that thought, Li Yuanyi decisively changed his plan and chose to teleport back to the cave instead. Meanwhile, on Deng Qingxuan's side, she had barely been apart from him for any time at all before she was already missing him terribly. So when she saw Li Yuanyi return, her lovely face lit up with instant delight. Well then, you came back so quickly. Does that mean you couldn't bear to leave me after all? Yeah, Qing. Li Yuanyi smoothly picked up the thread, saying he had suddenly thought of something very important. First of all, as a man, of course he couldn't bear to leave her. And also, I still don't know whether that dress I bought for you fits properly. Shuang, go put it on and let me see. I can hardly wait. Before long, Deng Qingxuan walked out wearing the dress, and the dim cave seemed to brighten the moment she appeared. Li Yuanyi immediately smiled and praised her. This is the newest style of the season. Shuang, do you like it? Deng Qingxuan answered happily. As long as it's from you, Beatty, I like it. It's just a little tight. It's squeezing me so much I can barely breathe. But when she thought of how Li Yuanyi still intended to leave later, a trace of disappointment inevitably surfaced in her eyes. Because Li Yuanyi had come back this time, Deng Qingxuan never left the cave again. Elsewhere, Shi Tianrui had finally run out of patience. Since the Dark Tribe would soon enter hibernation anyway, he figured he might as well go look for other heroines first. Let's go. We'll come back for Deng Qingxuan when the timing is right. Meanwhile, Li Yuanyi had already promised Deng Qingxuan that he would wait until she fell asleep before quietly slipping away. Once he judged that the timing was finally right, Li Yuanyi softly tested the waters. King, are you asleep yet? When she gave no response, he finally let out a small breath of relief. Looks like she really is asleep. The next second, Li Yuanyi vanished from the spot. Using coordinate teleportation, he returned to the tribe in an instant. The first thing he did was scan the surroundings to make sure no one had noticed him. But when he looked up, he found candlelight still glowing inside the house. Fu was still awake. Was she waiting for him? What Li Yuanyi didn't know was that every single one of his movements had been watched by someone else. Only after he pushed open the door and stepped into the little hut did a giant python slowly reveal itself from the darkness. In the next instant, the snake transformed into human form. The confusion in Aiwan's eyes only deepened. She had never imagined that Li Yuanyi was actually capable of opening such a high-level teleportation array. Inside the house, Kufu had actually fallen asleep on the floor, as if she had been waiting there for him the whole time. Master, you're back? Li Yuanyi set the fish down on the table and frowned as he asked, why were you sleeping on the floor? Kufu instinctively answered, dinner's already ready. I'll go bring it over. Wait, stand right there. Li Yuanyi cut her off at once. Answer the question I just asked first. You obviously prefer a softer bed. Did you really think I wouldn't know that? I'm ordering you to sleep on the bed from now on. When he noticed the clear trace of suspicion rising in Kufu's eyes, Li Yuanyi immediately switched back into his arrogant young master act and said coldly, sit down, I'll bring the food myself, so you don't poison me, and then use the chance to run. Only then did Kufu pause in a daze. Good. He really was still the same master as before, just a little better than he used to be. In the kitchen, Dowding's notification sounded right on cue. Kufu's affection has increased by 1. 5 points awarded. But Li Yuanyi found himself understanding this woman less and less. Even so, no matter how he looked at it, he was definitely getting better and better at dealing with Kufu. Apparently, Dowding thought the same thing. Once he returned to the room, Li Yuanyi ordered Kufu, sit down and eat. If you don't, I'll hit you. Finish everything. No eating less on purpose. You know I hate having anyone in this house go hungry. But just then, a faint itch suddenly spread across Li Yuanyi's neck. Kufu happened to catch sight of it immediately. Her expression changed on the spot, and she threw down her bowl and chopsticks without a second thought. Master, this is a mark? This aura? It's from the Dark Tribe? Li Yuanyi froze for a moment. That's right, what is it? Is there something wrong with this mark? Kufu's face instantly turned even uglier. There's a huge problem. This means a Dark Tribe woman has set her sights on you. They'll definitely force you to leave behind offspring with her. Li Yuanyi instantly went speechless. How did Khufu know the Dark Tribe's habits so clearly? But Khufu was obviously panicking now. No, we have to leave. Master, we need to go somewhere the Dark Tribe can't easily reach. Once they set their sights on you, they'll use you like a tool until they're done, then dump you in the wild like trash. Yet, Li Yue slowly set down his bowl and chopsticks, then asked her in return, if that happens, Khufu, wouldn't that mean you'd finally be free? Khufu visibly froze for a moment, then stammered out, I just don't want to see someone I know get hurt. That's all. Doting immediately detected violent emotional fluctuations from Khufu, but for the moment it still couldn't tell whether this was rising affection or another surge toward blackening. All right. Li Yuanyi softened his voice. I know you're loyal. Sit down first and finish eating. What mattered most right now was calming Khufu down. As for what had happened with King Shuang, Khufu absolutely could not be allowed to sense anything. Time passed little by little, and the night grew deeper and deeper, while Li Yuanyi quietly watched Khufu sleeping peacefully on the couch bed, feeling an unexpected ache of tenderness rise in his chest. The next second, as if possessed, he reached out and gently lifted her tail. It was unbelievably soft, warm, fluffy, and absurdly satisfying to the touch. Li Yuanyi's thoughts immediately drifted off course. Ever since transmigrating, he hadn't tried turning into a werewolf yet. Logically, wolf fur ought to be rougher, right? So why did a foxtail feel this good? It was basically impossible to stop touching it. Khufu jolted awake at once, her whole body going rigid. This guy, what exactly is he doing? But before she could fully react, Li Yuanyi's hand had already gotten even bolder. In her head, Khufu was screaming in total panic. Stop, stop right now. Don't touch the base of my tail anymore. If you keep this up, my body is going to start feeling really strange. The next instant, the system alert rang out. Khufu's affection has increased by 50 points awarded. Right after that, Duding unlocked a new function as well. Store upgrade complete. More items have now been listed. Host is welcome to browse. As for Khufu, she honestly felt like she must have lost her mind. As a fox, she understood better than anyone what it meant to have her tail touched. And yet, lying beside Li Yuanyi, she was feeling a sense of safety she had never known before. Just for tonight, maybe she could fall asleep leaning against him like this. Dawn slowly broke, and Li Yuanyi opened his handsome eyes to greet a brand new day. Only then did he realize that Khufu beside him had already shifted back into human form. When she was asleep, she really was absurdly well behaved. But once she woke up, she still had to go out and work alongside the other maids. Before leaving, she even deliberately told Li Yuanyi to go speak with the village chief about moving away as soon as possible, because now that a dark tribe woman had marked him, staying here was simply too dangerous. The moment he heard that, Li Yuanyi's scalp tingled. If he really left the tribe and King Shuang found out, King Shuang would definitely blacken again. But Khufu was clearly dead set on moving, and if he flatly refused, all the affection he had painstakingly built up on this side might collapse too. Women really were impossible. Every last one of them. No, he still had to go talk to Khufu again. At the very least, he needed some excuse to stall her, like saying that moving house was a major matter and needed to be discussed carefully first. In the orchard not far outside the tribe, Khufu was quietly picking fruit, and even doing something as simple as that made her look unbearably cute. Naturally, Shi Tianrui seemed to think so too. Because today, no matter what, he was going to make Khufu develop some affection for him. First things first, he obviously needed an outfit that would make him look stunning at a single glance. The official Doubting promptly recommended Pearl Set. Once equipped, the host's charm will increase by 100 for 1 hour, and thus came the real male lead's first official meeting with the heroine. Shi Tianrui strode forward with forced elegance and said, Miss Khufu, hello, that's a lot of fruit. It must be heavy. Come on, let me carry it back for you. Khufu, however, only felt speechless. What even is this? The grease on his face is practically reflecting light. She coldly replied, Go do your own work. This is a maid's job. If even this gets taken away from me, I'll have even less of a place to stand. Shi Tianrui looked instantly shaken. What was this supposed to mean? He was the male lead. Could it be that she was just shy? Very quickly, he started comforting himself again. Right, this had to be it. He was already unbelievably handsome to begin with, and now he had charm buffs stacked on top of that. Such troublesome charm. And it just so happened that Li Yuanyi arrived in time to catch the whole scene. A cold laugh immediately rose in Li Yuanyi's heart. Oh, so you think you're the only one who knows how to play this game? In the next second, he casually brushed back his hair and thought, as if I don't know how to pull the innocent clingy act too. Then, Li Yuanyi deliberately softened his voice into something sweet and clingy and called out to Kufu. I missed you so much, I just couldn't help coming to see you. But since there's already another big brother here keeping you company, I guess I shouldn't disturb you after all. Shi Tianrui was left utterly speechless on the spot. Why was this cannon fodder guy here too? And worse, how did it feel like this bastard was even better at pulling this act than he was? Li Yuanyi kept control of the scene, deliberately putting on a wronged little tone. If I'd known, I wouldn't have come at all. I worried about you for nothing. The moment Kufu heard that, she panicked and hurried to explain. No, I'm done picking on Eddie. I'll go back with Master right now. Li Yuanyi immediately sneered inwardly. Fight me for her, Shi Tianrui? Dream on. Fine then. I'll carry the basket for you. Kufu, what do you want to eat? Once we get home, Master's definitely going to reward you properly. Shi Tianrui stood there in place, unable to make sense of it no matter how hard he tried. According to the plot, Li Yuanyi should have been written out of the story long ago. And, besides, I'm the male lead. I'm the actual male lead. Even Li Yuanyi himself, this supposed villainous side character, found it hard to believe. The heroine had actually rejected the real male lead without hesitation and chosen to go back with him instead. On the way home, Shufu even kept reminding Li Yuanyi to be careful of that strange man from earlier. What was wrong with him? He knew perfectly well I'm your maid, and he still dared to set his sights on me. There's definitely something wrong with his intentions, and don't act like that again in the future. If the other men in the tribe see you doing that, they'll only look down on you even more. Only then did Li Yuanyi realize she was talking about the innocent, clingy act he had just pulled. At that thought, he suddenly reached out and stopped her in her tracks. Kufu immediately panicked. What are you doing? If someone sees us, that'd be bad. But Li Yuanyi only said seriously, I don't care what other people think of me. They never thought much of me to begin with. The only thing I care about is whether I can slowly make up for everything I owe you. The difference between the old him and the current him was just too huge. Kufu even found herself wondering if Li Yuanyi had gotten hidden ahead somewhere along the way. And yet, even so, her affection for him kept rising on its own. Li Yuanyi also felt his heart soften a little. Kuifu might only be one of the 7 heroines he had to win over, with 6 more still waiting ahead. But she was still the very first heroine he had met after transmigrating into this world. Kufu, do you know that your smile is really beautiful? Smile more in the future, even if one day I'm no longer by your side. The first half of that made Kufu's heart flutter a little, but the second half instantly darkened her expression. I'm not listening to you anymore. Let's just go home and eat. After saying that, she lowered her head and walked ahead, refusing to pay Li Yuanyi any more attention. As for Shi Tianrui behind them, he was gritting his teeth so hard they were nearly cracking. After just this first round of direct confrontation, the official system had already concluded that Li Yuanyi absolutely had to be that other transmigrator. If that guy managed to get ahead and win over all those heroines first, the one who'd end up erased by the system would probably be him instead. Host, let's not get too anxious just yet. But Shi Tianrui only narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, Winter's almost here. That means some of the Dark Tribe women should be looking for mates around now. Before I transmigrated, I read the plot very carefully. There's a female Dark Tribe NPC here. Give her a little hope, and she'll gladly do all the dirty work for me. Borrow a knife to kill. As long as Li Yuanyi, that cannon fodder scum who should have been gone long ago, was eliminated first. Then the plotline would naturally return to the proper track. Back in the hut, Li Yuyan had just set a pot of durian-stewed stinky tofu in front of Chufu and told her to eat it while it was hot, when his expression suddenly changed. Who's there? In the same instant, a sharp Dark Tribe spell came slashing straight toward him. Just as the woman in black was about to succeed, Kufu abruptly threw herself in front of Li Yuanyi and took the deadly strike for him. She was obviously hurt badly, her whole body swaying. Li Yuanyi had not even had time to check her injuries, when Kufu had already bitten out the question first. Is she the Dark Tribe woman who left that mark on you? No, she's not. But before his words had even finished falling, the woman in black gave a cold snort. Tonight, you must die, because only if you die will I have any chance of living. Only then did it become clear that she was the very Dark Tribe woman Shi Tianrui had sought out. Shi Tianrui had promised her that if she killed Li Yuanyi, he would take her in as his servant and grant her a real identity. After all, Only by being acknowledged by humans or beast folk could she truly break free of her shackles and escape the dark abyss. At that thought, the dark tribe woman curled her fingers into claws and lunged at Li Yuanyi once again, only to be blocked by Ku Fu all over again. Enraged after being stopped twice in a row, the dark tribe woman completely lost it. The force of her attack blasted Ku Fu straight out, smashing her hard into a tree outside the house. Hidden in the shadows, Yuan's eyes widened at once. A member of the dark tribe, and one bold enough to show up openly inside a werewolf tribe. But no one noticed that a sphere of light had already begun gathering in Li Yuanyi's hand, growing brighter and brighter. The spell's wind-up ended almost immediately. Even though the dark tribe woman sensed the danger too late, she still took Li Yuanyi's punch head-on. But even after she had completely lost the ability to fight back, Li Yuanyi still wasn't satisfied and slammed another punch into her. That's for hurting my Q-Fu. By the time the ground cracked and dust exploded into the air, even Yuan, watching from concealment, couldn't help murmuring to herself, "Interesting. Really interesting. Li Yuanyi, just how many surprises are you still hiding from me?" Ku Fu was even more stunned, practically numb from shock. Since when had her master become this strong? Li Yuanyi coldly demanded, "Talk. Who sent you?" But he also knew perfectly well that once the dark tribe entered a loyalty pact, they remained forever devoted to their master. Since this woman refused to speak, letting her live would only create future trouble. Pretty face, though, what a waste. Ku Fu, on the other hand, was too shocked to think about anything else. She could only wonder when exactly her master had learned to use techniques like this. Li Yuanyi himself felt a headache coming on. How was he supposed to explain any of this? He couldn't exactly tell her that he had just leveled up on the spot, bought a spellbook straight from the system store, and got ripped off by that scammy system in the process. In the end, all he could do was wave it off and tell Ku Fu, "Don't worry about the details. I guess after getting taken by the dark tribe last time, I suddenly understood a few things." To his surprise, Ku Fu actually believed him. Her eyes even lit up slightly. "Master, you really are a martial genius." Hidden nearby, Yuan nearly laughed out loud in disbelief. Martial insight? As if this kind of technique could just be comprehended to talent alone. Even the weakest dark tribe fighter normally needed a second-rank warrior to suppress them. And this Ku Fu girl, though she looked delicate and soft, clearly had terrifying potential. From the looks of it, her inner core had probably been sealed. Yuan thought to herself that she had only passed through this village to recover from her injuries, yet somehow had stumbled into one fascinating scene after another. The commotion this time was so huge that it quickly drew all the villagers over. Li Yuanyi briefly recounted what had just happened, especially since this village had never before experienced a dark tribe infiltrator sneaking in. Once it was confirmed that the dark tribe woman really had been killed on the spot, the village chief's face filled with disbelief. After all, the old bastard who used to occupy this body had been so weak that even carrying a bucket of water would leave him panting. But Ku Fu quickly reminded everyone that there had to be an informant in the village. Someone had let the dark tribe in. The village chief nodded in agreement. By all logic, the dark tribe should have been focused on preparing for hibernation. Unless someone had offered them a greater benefit, there was no reason for them to get involved. He then turned toward Li Yuanyi with a frown. "Tell me, Li Yuanyi, have you offended someone lately?" Li Yuanyi thought to himself that Uncle Shu's brain sure worked fast. But outwardly, he only played dumb. Who could I possibly have offended? Who even takes me seriously? At that moment, however, Chu Fu suddenly brought up Shi Tianrui, the man who had been openly eyeing her during the day, and mentioned that he seemed to be staying in the village now. Old Shu's temper flared up at once. The man knew Chu Fu belonged to Li Yuanyi, yet he still tried to approach her behind his back. That was an obvious violation of the rules. "Go. Bring that outsider staying in the village here, right now." Half an incense stick later, Shi Tianrui arrived at the scene. The only thing he did, though, was cast a casual glance at the dead dark tribe woman being carried away. Faced with the village chief's string of questioning, Shi Tianrui immediately put on a calm, reasonable expression. "Chief, if you suspect me, then you should present evidence. Since when does anyone get forced to prove their innocence without proof against them?" For a moment, the village chief actually hesitated. On top of that, this young man carried himself with unusual composure and really didn't look like someone plotting anything underhanded. Seeing the opening, Shi Tianrui pressed on at once. "I may not have been in this village long, but I've already heard what sort of person Li Yuanyi is. Lazy, gluttonous, and always bullying his maid. Last time, he was supposedly taken by the dark tribe, yet somehow came back without a scratch. Have any of you even stopped to think about why he returned completely unharmed? Seeing him twist the situation around like that, Li Yuanyi became completely certain that this bastard was the one behind everything. He immediately sneered back. I came back alive because I can fight, and because my luck isn't bad either. Ku Fu also stepped forward without hesitation. That's right, the Dark Tribe woman tonight was brought down by my master with his own hands, and the village chief knew perfectly well that Ku Fu never lied. But in the very next second, Shi Tianrui's eyes landed on the bite mark on Li Yuanyi's neck. He immediately seized on it. So many holes in your story and you still think you can argue with me? Everyone, look, he has a Dark Tribe mark on him. Who here would believe someone could walk away unharmed after being marked? Li Yuanyi instantly felt a headache coming on. He had originally wanted to persuade Chu Fu to stay a little longer, but now that things had come to this, there was no way to explain it cleanly. If he kept dragging this out, it would only get worse. Still, I was planning to tell Uncle Shu about this anyway. Kuei Fu and I are going to move to Yangshan Town and avoid any further pursuit from the Dark Tribe. It's true that I've been marked. If I stay here, the Dark Tribe woman who marked me will come back sooner or later. We just got lucky today, so I'm leaving tomorrow. Uncle Shu still couldn't help worrying. Can you even manage that? You grew up in this tribe. If you really go out into the world, how are you supposed to make a living? Li Yuanyi thanked him for his concern, but only said that he had already made up his mind, and there was no point trying to talk him out of it. But just as it looked like he really was about to leave with Qiu Fu, Shi Tianrui suddenly lost his cool and blocked their path. You're not going anywhere. If he still hadn't even gotten close to Deng Qingshuang yet, and Ku Fu was about to leave too, then what kind of male lead would that make him? Even the village chief was getting fed up. If they want to move away, what does that have to do with you? Shi Tianrui immediately pushed back. No. Li Yuanyi's connection with the Dark Tribe hasn't been cleared up. If he leaves now, that's fleeing out of guilt. Chief, you can't just leave this kind of danger behind for the village. Li Yuanyi let out a cold laugh. And where's your evidence? Just like I don't have proof that you were the one who set me up. What evidence do you have that I'm colluding with the Dark Tribe? It was painfully obvious by now that Ku Fu was utterly disgusted with this so-called true male lead. Even the system was warning that the Villainesses' blackening toward Shi Tianrui was rising rapidly. Shi Tianrui himself had clearly never expected things to turn out this way. Host, stop while you still can. You're not his match right now. After thinking it over, Shi Tianrui had to admit that made sense. According to the plot, Yangshan Town also had villainous heroines he could win over. So, at worst, he could just follow them there later. With that in mind, he stopped arguing and simply turned away toward the house, seeing the disgust written all over Ku Fu's face. Li Yuanyi finally let out a quiet breath of relief. At the very least, he didn't have to worry for now about her being won over by this so-called male lead. After that, he formally said goodbye to the village chief. After all, Uncle Shu had watched the bastard who came before him grow up, so there was still a bit of old sentiment there. Uncle Shu could only sigh and mourn him. Once you're out there, fix those rotten habits of yours. Treat your maid better too. And when you get to Yangshan Town, live honestly. As for the house, after the fight with the Dark Tribe woman earlier, it had already been smashed into a complete mess. Seeing the heartache on Ku Fu's face, Li Yuanyi comforted her. If it's broken, then it's broken. Don't be sad. As he spoke, he gently took hold of her slender little hand. You never liked this place anyway, so just treat everything here as a page that's already turned. Because we're going to have a new home very soon. A new home? Qiu Fu instantly blushed so hard, she didn't even dare lift her head. Li Yuanyi lowered his voice and added, that's right, a new home that belongs to the two of us. So tonight, we should head to sleep early. But, looking at the broken doorway with no proper door panel left, Qiu Fu still hesitated. Master, are we really just going to sleep out in the open like this tonight? Li Yuanyi waved it off casually. What's there to be afraid of? Your master here is famous across 10 villages for being dirt poor. There's nothing in this place worth stealing anyway. If there's one thing anyone might still covet, it'd only be you. So how about we sleep together tonight, Ku Fu? The moment he saw how badly he'd frightened her again, Li Yuanyi quickly explained, I'm not going to do anything to you. I just mean sleep together, in the sense of leaning on each other to get through the night. We're leaving tomorrow anyway, and this is our last night here. Besides, you can shift back into your beast form if you want. Even so, Ku Fu was still far too nervous to calm down. Ku Fu hesitated for a long while before slowly reaching out with her small hand. If Master dares to try anything, I'll fight you with my life. But all these years, I never once touched you. At least on that point, you should believe me. After the candle was blown out, the two quietly said goodnight to each other and lay down. And this was actually the first time Kyufu had ever slept so close to her master. Thinking back on how awful he had been to her before, compared to how he now seems like a completely different person, she suddenly found herself unable to sort out what she was really feeling. At that thought, Kyufu somehow gathered her courage and secretly turned to study Li Yuanyi's profile. In a tiny voice she murmured, If you really keep treating me this well from now on, then I'll live a good life with you." Li Yuanyi looked at her gently and said in a soft voice, "Chufu, we're equals. You don't need to force yourself." Duding practically exploded on the spot. Incredible. That cheesy line was incredible. Kufu's affection has already shot up to 4 stars. Host, you turned the whole situation around with a single sentence. Li Yuanyi instantly came alive, and even his voice grew more sincere. Then, let's just treat it as getting to know each other all over again. I won't treat you the way I used to, and let this count as my apology to you on behalf of the Li Yuanyi from the past. Hearing that, Kufu could no longer hold back the emotions surging inside her, and suddenly wrapped both arms tightly around his arm. Only then did Li Yuanyi realize that Kufu's affection for him was just one final step away. One more star, and all 5 would be lit up. The next morning, Kufu slowly woke up and quickly discovered that at some point during the night, their faces had ended up pressed very close together. Startled, she immediately turned over with a jerk, babbling in a panic. I only slept too deeply last night. That's all." Looking at her embarrassed and flustered expression, Li Yuanyi secretly smiled and simply said, "It's warmer when 2 people sleep close together. By the way, Kufu, go pack up first." He rose to his feet as he spoke. "I need to head out for a bit. I'll help you once I get back." Kufu immediately tensed up. "Why do you still have to go out? Master, is it something urgent?" Without changing expression, Li Yuanyi replied, "Yeah. Aren't we leaving for Yongshan City soon? I need to go sort out our household registration first and pick up some travel provisions while I'm at it. Be good. Listen to me. Your master will be back very soon." Meanwhile, Yuan, who had been lying in wait in the grass, was clearly startled by the sudden sound of Li Yuanyi opening the door. She frowned to herself. Li Yuanyi is leaving the village again? Shouldn't he be staying home and packing like a normal person? But in the very next moment, the exact same strange scene happened again. Just like last time, that guy vanished out of nowhere. The more Yuan watched, the more unsettled she became. Where in the world had he learned such a high-level teleportation art? If she ate him, would she be able to gain an art this convenient too? It just so happened that her injuries were almost fully healed by now. Tilting her head, Yuan quickly made up her mind. Then I'll just follow him all the way to Yongshan City. At the same time, Li Yuanyi had already arrived back at the cave in the wild. Holding the meat he had redeemed from the system shop, he shouted from a distance, "Shuang Shuang, I'm here." A silver bell-like laugh immediately rang out from inside the cave. Deng Qingxuan always had a way of appearing when he least expected it. "Yuanyi baby, are your injuries better now? And why are you carrying the whole basket of meat? Are you going to stay and hibernate with me?" Li Yuanyi quickly explained. "Well, my Schwammer is about to start hibernating, and I was worried you wouldn't have enough to eat, so I made a special trip to bring you some food. Besides, I'm from the Wolf Clan, so I don't hibernate. Of course, I missed you too, but my injuries are still pretty bad, and I still need to go out and find treatment." Deng Qingxuan gave a soft hum. I understand." But the next second, something seemed to occur to her. Wait, her eyes instantly sharpened. "Go out? Where are you going?" Li Yuanyi had originally thought he could bluff his way through this, but Deng Qingxuan was clearly far more alert than he'd expected. So in the next second, he had no choice but to act again, sighing with exaggerated devotion. "Sigh, the reason I deliberately chose to go treat my injuries while you're hibernating is because I want the first thing you see when you wake up to be me. I already swore I would never abandon you." Hearing that, Deng Qingxuan's expression dimmed a little, and she said in a small voice, "But I'd still be scared." Li Yuanyi felt his heart soften at once, and said in a low voice, "I know, Shuang Shuang. You've had it hard all this way. Not trusting people easily is just how you protect yourself. How could I ever blame you for that?" Doding immediately detected Deng Qingxuan's affection rising again. "Host, that little pink heart is almost lit up. Keep comforting her." Li Yuanyi pressed on right away. "Shuang, I may still just be an ordinary man right now, but if it means helping you break free from the Dark Tribe's curse, I'll do everything I can to grow stronger and give you the most stable life possible." Doding started cheering from the side. "Come on, host, just a little more." Li Yuanyi followed up without missing a beat. "Shuang, if you ever need me, I'll come to your side. We already have a spiritual connection now. You've felt it too, haven't you?" In the very next second, Deng Qingshuang's affection bar gave a clear little chime and filled completely. Doding instantly sent its congratulations, but then quickly added a warning. Host, don't get cocky. This villainess is especially insecure and clingy. Even if those little stars are pink right now, they can still turn gray again at any moment. Li Yuanyi could only fall silent in exasperation. For the sake of finishing this mission, he really had lost every last shred of shame. But right then, Deng Qingshuang's expression suddenly shifted again, in a way that felt very wrong. At first, Li Yuanyi did understand, but it didn't take him long to realize exactly what she was about to do again. He immediately screamed inwardly, "Someone please come save me." After that, Li Yuanyi finally managed to return home in one piece. It was obvious that Kufu had already packed up most of their belongings. Li Yuanyi casually dropped the travel rations he had brought back onto the table, then reached out and gently fixed her braid, sounding half helpless and half fond. "Honestly, look how busy you've been. Your hair's a mess." To his surprise, Kufu's gaze suddenly softened and shifted. And, in the next instant, she did the impossible and threw herself straight into Li Yuanyi's arms. "Master, don't keep treating me this well. I'm scared that I'll really start falling for you." Before they left, the elder personally walked Li Yuanyi all the way to the village entrance, clearly reluctant to see him go. Seeing that the old man truly cared, Li Yuanyi felt warmth rise in his chest and impulsively stepped forward to hug Uncle Shu tight. Uncle Shu shoved him away at once and grumbled, "You're a young man. Why are you being so sentimental? And listen, if things don't work out for you out there someday, come back. There'll always be at least one bowl of rice for you here." Kufu felt unexpectedly moved and said softly, "If Uncle Shu hadn't been quietly looking after Master all these years, you probably really wouldn't have survived until now. Once we get the chance in the future, we absolutely have to come back and visit him." 2 days later, the two of them passed through a mysterious forest where glowing little paths twisted between the trees, eventually arriving at a waterfall where the spring water rang out with a bright, lively sound. Taking in the scene, Li Yuanyi suggested they rest there for a while. "Let's stop here for now. Kufu, go wash up. I'll head into the forest and gather some firewood so we can light a fire." Kufu immediately shook her head. "Master, how can that be? Things like this are supposed to be my job." Li Yuanyi cut her off directly. "Remember this. Don't think of yourself as a slave anymore. At this point, we should count as family." The moment she heard that, Kufu's cheeks flushed bright red, and the corners of her lips lifted before she could stop them. Li Yuanyi gave her a small smile. "Go on. I already checked the area earlier. There's nobody nearby." That simple bit of thoughtfulness made Kufu blush all the way from her neck to the tips of her toes. Even Doubting couldn't help marveling. "Host, you're really something. No matter what you do, little Foxy's affection just keeps climbing, bit by bit." Li Yuanyi still tried to act casual. "It's nothing, really." But then he couldn't help frowning. Something about this forest felt off. The vegetation was way too dense. What he didn't realize was that several strange vines had already crept soundlessly to his feet. Duding quickly scanned the surroundings and explained, "There's another villainess named Ruan Lingzhu. She's from the Forest Clan and lives in an environment exactly like this." Li Yuanyi instantly felt his scalp go numb. Oh no, looking at these coordinates, this is her territory. But by then, it was already too late. In the very next second, Li Yuanyi was tied up tight from head to toe, then hoisted upside down onto a nearby tree like a neatly wrapped rice dumpling. Doubting couldn't do much to help, so all it could do was warn him that Ruan Lingzhu was a total sucker for a pretty face and the very definition of soft on the outside, black-hearted underneath. Li Yuanyi was instantly speechless. So if she doesn't fall for me, does that mean my looks just don't make the cut? Thinking about it, that actually sounded possible. After all, the real male lead was the kind of top-tier handsome guy people wrote novels about. As for Li Yuanyi, at best he was a 9.9, assuming the full score was only 10. Just then, a pair of bare feet stepped lightly into view beneath a pale green gauze dress, and an absolutely stunning fairy-like beauty revealed her face. She looked him up and down with a smile. "So you're a young wolf clansman. This forest has been quiet for far too long. It's been ages since I last ran into a living creature." Duding immediately whispered a warning in his ear. According to the original story, Ruan Lingzhu's true body had been sealed away by the forest high priest, so the one standing here now was probably only an avatar. The moment she asked for his name, Li Yuanyi's heart jumped. Maybe there was still room to work with this. He quickly answered, "My name is Li Yuanyi." But instead of reacting normally, Ruan Lingzhu leaned in, sniffed at him, and murmured, "You smell nice. You'd probably taste good too." Li Yuanyi nearly short-circuited on the spot. Is this woman insane? Why is she asking what her food is called? Fortunately, at that exact moment, Kufu's anxious voice calling his name rang out from the distance. Ruan Lingju seemed to notice something immediately, and in the next instant, she dissolved into a streak of light, leaving behind only a teasing line, "I'll come find you later." The vines loosened right after that, and Li Yuanyi finally got his freedom back. The moment he looked up, he saw Kufu's little face filled with panic. After hearing what had just happened, Kufu grew even more nervous and hurried over to help him to his feet. "Master, the aura here is far too cold and oppressive. Something's wrong. We can't stay here any longer. Hurry, let's go. We need to camp somewhere else." Not long after that, Li Yuanyi and Kufu finally made it all the way to Yangshan City. Since Li Yuanyi had never really left the village after transmigrating into the book, the sight of the city's bustling prosperity left him genuinely stunned. Kufu, however, only grew quiet, a trace of loneliness surfacing in her eyes. "My hometown used to be even more prosperous than this." Seeing that, Li Yuanyi reached out and gently rubbed her head. "Don't be sad. I'll help you rebuild your homeland one day." According to the original story, after Li Yuanyi died, Kufu was supposed to rebuild the Fox clan with the help of the real male lead. That thought instantly made Li Yuanyi bristle. Whatever Shi Tianru could do, he would do even better. But Kufu looked at him in confusion. "Why does it feel like Master knows a lot about what I went through before?" Li Yuanyi's heart jumped. Damn it, he'd gotten carried away and nearly said too much. He quickly changed the subject. "I really was awful before, but lately, when I think back on the past, I've started to understand just how hard things must have been for you all these years." Hearing that, Kufu's emotions only grew more complicated. After all, she had spent years under the abuse of the bastard who came before. So no one was more sensitive than she was to the changes in Li Yuanyi now. Still, no matter what, she quietly said, "I only hope Master can stay like this from now on, and never change back again." The shy and cautious way she looked at him made Li Yuanyi's heart melt. He nodded seriously, then remembered that the most important thing right now was finding a place for them to stay. To his surprise, Kufu tilted her head and softly said, "There's no need to look." Thoroughly confused, Li Yuanyi followed her through one turn after another, until they finally stopped in front of an unexpectedly luxurious courtyard. Kufu stepped forward and knocked lightly on the door, and a moment later, an 8-foot-tall Fox Clan warrior woman leaned out. The instant she saw Kufu, she cried out in shock. "My princess." Du Ding immediately passed more information to Li Yuanyi. This woman, Ah Chun, had once been Kufu's mother's personal maid. She was fiercely loyal to the Fox Clan line, and also a truly formidable warrior in her own right. Aunt Chun's eyes turned red with emotion. In her wildest dreams, she had never imagined she would live long enough to see her little princess again. After that, Chufu briefly told Aunt Chun about everything that had happened to her over the years. The moment she mentioned being sold to the Wolf Clan as a slave, Aunt Chun's eyes instantly turned red with pain. "My heavens, princess, you suffered so much all these years." But, in the very next second, she spotted the rather handsome Li Yuanyi standing behind her, and her expression darkened immediately. "A wolf clansman? Don't tell me it was this brat." The atmosphere turned awkward on the spot, and Li Yuanyi could practically feel the killing intent pouring off her. Fortunately, Kufu quickly explained, "He is my master. No, he used to be. Not anymore. Now, we're family." Hearing that, Ea Chun fell into thought. She remembered how deeply the Fox Emperor and Fox Empress had once cared for her. Now, at long last, she finally had a chance to repay that old kindness by taking care of their princess. Even so, it was painfully obvious that the way she looked at Li Yuanyi was a completely different matter. As it turned out, Aunt Chun had spent all these years keeping a low profile out of fear that one small mistake might make her lose track of Kufu's whereabouts. Because of that, she had also quietly kept the best room prepared for the princess all this time. But to her surprise, Kufu softly asked, "Aunt Chun, could Li Yuanyi stay in the room next to mine?" "Princess, how could that possibly?" Kufu hurried to add, "It's all right, Aunt Chun. He really is good to me now." Even though the one who had hurt Kufu back then wasn't the current Li Yuanyi, hearing those words still made him feel a little guilty. In the end, Aunt Chun reluctantly agreed to let Li Yuanyi stay next door, though she made it clear that he would have to clean the room himself. Then, she changed the subject and said she would personally go prepare some food to welcome the princess back properly. And Kufu truly lived up to her warm little cotton jacket reputation. Immediately turning to Li Yuanyi and saying, "Yuanyi, don't worry. I'll help you clean up. You already gave me back my freedom. Helping you with a little work is nothing." Li Yuani felt a warm ache in his chest hearing that, and couldn't help cursing inwardly again. A girl as obedient and thoughtful as Qifu. Just how sick in the head had that bastard from before been to treat her that way? And ever since Qifu had been sold away, she had never returned to Yangshan City. Now that she was finally back, she could only feel that everything around her had changed beyond recognition. So she gathered her courage and said that after dinner, she wanted Li Yuani to go out for a walk with her. Li Yuani was just about to agree when Doubting suddenly sent out an alert. Not good, host. Deng Qingshuang's corruption level is surging violently. Seeing Qifu looking at him with concern, Li Yuani could only force himself to stay calm and say, "It's nothing. My stomach suddenly feels a little off." "Well, so, you go ahead and stay busy. I'm just stepping out for a moment." The instant he said that, he urged inwardly, "Doubting, hurry. Open the coordinates to Qingshuang's location and activate spatial teleportation now." In the next second, Li Yuani appeared directly in the area where Deng Qingshuang was. But the moment he landed, he saw signs of battle all around him. He was just about to rush into the cave to check, when Deng Qingshuang herself came flying out, thrown heavily through the air. Li Yuani immediately lunged forward and caught her in his arms, shielding her tightly to keep her from taking a second impact. "Shuang, what happened? Shuang, tell me, what happened here?" Blood was already seeping from the corner of Deng Qingshuang's lips, yet she still forced herself to urge him away. "Yuani, run! Don't worry about me. Don't stay here." A moment later, Li Yuani saw 3 women slowly emerge from inside the cave. One of them licked her lips and sneered, "Well, well. A little wolf puppy delivered himself right to our doorstep. So tender-looking, too. Winter's almost here, and just like that, we've got extra meat for the pantry." Another smiled even more viciously. "No rush, sister. Why not let the 3 of us each perform the ritual with him first? Once that's done, we can turn him into jerky and eat him at our leisure." Deng Qingshuang knew better than anyone how cruel her own kind could be, and she became even more frantic. "Run, leave me, you can't beat them." But those words instantly rubbed Li Yuani the wrong way. He slowly stood up and looked coldly at the 3 dark tribe women. "Looks like that expensive skill I bought before is finally going to be useful again. You dare lay a hand on my woman? You've got a death wish." Deng Qingshuang froze in disbelief. Did I hear that right? He just said, "I'm his woman?" The 3 women on the other side only let out a cold snort. After all, even Deng Qingshuang couldn't handle them once they teamed up. So how could someone as ordinary looking as Li Yuani possibly matter? What they didn't know was that Li Yuani had a system on his side. Just to be safe, he gritted his teeth and spent another 50 points to upgrade his skill yet again. At that moment, the woman on the other side finally made her move, licking her lips as she smiled. "Come on, little wolf pup, spar with your big sister for a bit." Li Yuani didn't even think about it before driving a punch straight at her. "Quit trying to claim relatives the second we meet." The other 2 dark tribe women were instantly stunned. So this brat actually did have some skills, but they quickly sneered again. "Still, this is as far as you go." As soon as the words fell, the 3 of them shifted into formation and boxed Li Yuani in from 3 sides. Li Yuani's fists flared, and flames burst to life around them, instantly blowing 2 of them apart on the spot. Deng Qingshuang was completely frozen in shock, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. Had Yuani been hiding his true strength from her this whole time? Li Yuani stared coldly at the last one standing. "I don't hate women, but anyone who hurts my woman, that's different. Aren't you people always preaching survival of the fittest?" With that, he simply flicked his hand, and the flames reduced them to ash. "Then in your next life, try being born lucky." Once the fight was over, Li Yuani finally moved to carry Deng Qingshuang back into the cave. Deng Qingshuang wrapped her arms around his neck at once, her face filled with naked admiration. Li Yuani could practically feel her affection soaring through the roof. When Doubting finished the calculation, this one round had netted him a full 200 points. After that, Li Yuani carefully laid Deng Qingshuang down on the stone slab, then grit his teeth and spent another fortune of 2 whole points on a first aid kit. "Come on, let me stop the bleeding and disinfect this for my Shuang first." What he didn't notice was that Deng Qingshuang had been staring at him the whole time, with utterly love-struck eyes. Then, without the slightest sense of propriety, she suddenly made her move, and Li Yuani had to work to pry her tightly wrapped arms off his own. While tending her wounds, he coaxed her softly. "Come on, be good. The medicinal wine's about to spill. Let me patch this up first, or it'll split open again in a minute." Meanwhile, what Li Yuanye didn't know was that during this period, Chufu had been going out with Aunt Chun almost every morning to handle errands, only sneaking back home around dusk. And it was precisely during those windows that Li Yuanyi had secretly gone to visit Ding Qingshuang several times while she remained in hibernation. He had even painfully spent 2 points on buying her a quilt. Every time he returned, he would deliberately change clothes and spray himself with scent mist so Khufu wouldn't smell anything unusual on him. Even so, Khufu still noticed that something about him felt off. Li Yuanyi immediately launched into a rambling explanation, only to realize halfway through that the more he said, the guiltier he sounded. Fortunately, Khufu didn't press him any further, though the look in her eyes made it obvious she didn't believe him. Li Yuanyi couldn't help wondering about that too. She clearly didn't believe a word he said, so why was she holding back instead of asking? At the very least though, she still had no way of guessing he had a system, so for now, she couldn't possibly connect him to the other Deng Qingshuang. Just then, Dao Ding suddenly sent over another alert. Villainess number 3 is heading toward the Imperial clan. The moment Li Yuanyi heard that, his scalp tingled. Please don't let Shi Tianrui get to her first. But before he could think further, Khufu returned unusually early that day. She even walked right up to Li Yuanyi, and with a trace of grievance in her voice, said, "You've been so busy with your own things these past few days that you've been neglecting me a little. There's a temple fair in the city today. Would you go with me?" Li Yuanyi naturally agreed on the spot. It was the perfect chance to spend time with her and raise her affection a little more. Khufu, at that moment, looked so sweet and lovely, it was almost ridiculous. Li Yuanyi was already thinking to himself that he ought to change into something more presentable so he wouldn't embarrass her, but to his surprise, Khufu reached out and stopped him. No need to change. Then she lightly shook out her robe and said in a small voice, "Winter's here, so I made Master a padded coat." Khufu had been busy until so late every single day, and she still found time to make clothes for me. At that thought, Li Yuanyi genuinely wanted to slap the bastard from before twice across the face. In a low voice he said, "I'm sorry, Chufu. Even if those things weren't done by me, I still want to apologize to you, on behalf of the Li Yuanyi from before." Khufu tried her best to suppress the emotions surging in her chest, refusing to let herself sink back into that nightmare-like past. Then she lifted her head and softly reminded him, "The temple fair is about to start. Master, let's go." Thinking about how this poor little fox had never once been treated properly, and how she had practically handed over her whole heart just because he had shown her a little kindness, Li Yuanyi felt his own heart soften all over again. Since it was the annual temple fair, the streets were packed with life and noise. "I heard there's going to be a parade later. The high priest who just returned to the city will be riding on a flower carriage." Khufu quietly told Li Yuanyi that Kuan Ye was from the Dog clan and had studied under the imperial high priest, which gave her an extremely high status in the city. The moment Li Yuanyi heard that, he was instantly speechless. This was way too much of a coincidence. Only then did Khufu finally explain the reason. It turned out that the matter she had been busy with all this time was directly connected to High Priest Kuan Yue. Her Fox Clan power had been sealed, and she had learned that Kuan Yue had once helped other beast folk in similar situations recover their strength. That was why she and Aunt Chun had been contacting her parents' old followers and discussing the matter these past days. She even added a little nervously, "Anyway, Master, please don't be angry." Of course, Li Yuanyi wasn't angry, but he still turned to Doding and asked, "Were you the one who said the Villainesses weren't supposed to know about each other?" Dowding immediately clarified, "What's restricted is them knowing about each other's relationship with the host. The point is to stop them from getting jealous and wrecking the situation before you fully redeemed them. So basically, once one of them has already been successfully redeemed, it's not as dangerous anymore. Or, if they meet without knowing they're both connected to you, that's also manageable." Li Yuanyi instantly looked annoyed. "Then next time say it more clearly. I seriously thought that the second any two of them met, I'd be written out of the story on the spot." Just then, the flower carriage finally began to emerge from the corner of the street. Everyone around them held their breath and stared, while one corner of the curtain was gently lifted. Kuan Yue finally revealed her face, her skin slightly darker, but her features strikingly beautiful. Li Yuanyi's heart jolted. "So, you finally arrived, new villainess." But Khufu frowned slightly, a trace of displeasure in her voice as she warned him, "Master, save your energy. Kuan Yue is very hard to approach, and she especially hates men. So you better not get any ideas." Looking at the faint fang peeking from Kuan Ye's lips, Li Yuanyuan knew this one definitely wouldn't be easy to redeem. But the harder the challenge, the more interesting it felt to him. Fireworks blossomed brilliantly across the night sky, and under that glow, the distance between their hearts quietly grew smaller and smaller. For that one moment, it felt like a kind of happiness that belonged only to the two of them. Kung-fu finally couldn't hold back the smile at the corner of her lips anymore. Master, I'm really happy tonight. At that instant, the system interface popped up. It detected that Kung-fu's affection was rising in a straight surge, and the fifth star Li Yuanyi had been waiting for so long to see was finally fully lit. As a reward, he successfully received 150 points. But after the two of them returned home, Kung-fu immediately started a fire and began boiling water. Seeing that, Aunt Chun grew both anxious and annoyed, and quickly reminded her, "Princess, don't forget, you're a free person now. You don't need to personally do things like heating bathwater anymore, especially not for that man." Kung-fu only shook her head gently. "It's all right, Aunt Chun. I guess I've just gotten used to it." That only made Aunt Chun angrier. "What do you mean you're used to it? If nothing had happened to the Fox King back then, you would still be a noble princess. A wolf from some fringe tribe like Li Yuanyi wouldn't even be worthy of carrying your shoes." Kung-fu clearly didn't want to keep talking about it and lowered her voice. "You wouldn't understand, Aunt Chun. Besides, in 2 more days, something even more important is coming." Aunt Chun suddenly leaned closer and asked in a lowered voice, "Tell me honestly, princess, have you fallen for that wolf brat?" Kung-fu panicked at once and hurriedly denied it. "No, I haven't. Besides, when his parents bought me back then, they were already planning to make me his wife anyway. And it's just that he's all alone now, far from home, while I still at least have you. I only feel a little sorry for him. That's all." But Aunt Chun understood perfectly well. There was no way she couldn't see that her little princess had reached the age where a girl's heart could quietly begin to stir. So all she could do was warn her seriously, "Princess, no matter what, you must keep your eyes open. The males in this world are full of tricks." Once Aunt Chun returned to her room, Kung-fu sat alone by the fire in a daze. Ever since coming back from the temple fair, she had felt restless and uneasy, her heart thumping again and again, always feeling as if she wanted to do something. She couldn't tell whether it was the turmoil of a young girl's heart or just the heat from the fire, but her cheeks kept burning. Meanwhile, Li Yuanyi also quickly sensed that something was off. At some point, a faint fragrance had begun to drift through the room, and it definitely didn't smell like soap. Do Ding immediately explained it's pheromones. According to the original setting, beast folk release this scent at certain times. Li Yuanyi froze. "Wait, what? Is Kung-fu about to come of age? But isn't she only 16? Then it hit him. In 2 days, Kung-fu would be turning 17. And by beast folk standards, 17 counted as adulthood. No wonder she had been acting strange all day, and no wonder he himself had kept wanting to get closer to her. So it wasn't that his heart had suddenly gone weird, he was being drawn in by her pheromones. Normally speaking, a beast folk girl of 17 would already have a mate beside her who could help ease the symptoms. But Li Yuanyi had no way of knowing whether Kung-fu could truly accept him or not. If he handled this wrong and accidentally pushed her straight into blackening instead, that would be the end of everything. Li Yuanyi instantly felt a headache coming on. "Doting, come on, hurry up and help me think of something." Before Doubting could answer, Kung-fu was already softly calling to him. "Master, what are you staring into space for? The water's ready." Li Yuanyi could only force himself to speak. "Wait a second. There's something I want to talk to you about first. Kung-fu, in 2 days, it'll be your birthday." Kung-fu was visibly startled, and her eyes brightened at once, as though she had never expected that Master would actually remember her birthday. Li Yuanyi drew in a deep breath and forced himself to ask, "Do you know that when female beast folk turn 17, their bodies start to change?" At first, Kung-fu didn't understand what he meant, but she figured it out very quickly, and the tips of her ears turned bright red at once. So that was why she'd been feeling like this all day. Li Yuanyi's own face heated up too, but he still forced himself to continue. "You've already started releasing pheromones. For males, that kind of scent is a very dangerous sort of attraction. Do you understand what I mean? I didn't treat you well before, and I still don't know how you truly see me now. But I don't want to take advantage of you at a time like this either, so I have to make this clear first. Once a contract is formed, you'll be marked by me." When she didn't respond right away, Li Yuanyi couldn't help asking carefully, "Kung-fu, are you listening?" But what he never expected was that Kung-fu's small hand would quietly rise and brush lightly across his temple. In the next second, as if she had finally made up her mind, she suppressed the violent pounding in her chest and murmured in a trembling voice, I was bought by your family in the first place to become your wife." But she wasn't the only nervous one. Li Yuanyi could clearly feel that his own heart was pounding just as wildly. Ever since transmigrating into this book, this was the first time he had ever looked at a girl's face this seriously. Kung-fu was blushing so hard from his gaze that her voice softened completely, Master, don't look at me like that. I'll get shy. But suddenly, a ridiculous thought flashed through Li Yuani's mind. Wait a minute, wasn't he supposed to be the one winning over all these Villainesses? Then why did it suddenly feel like he was the one about to get won over instead? In the next second, he snapped out of it and hurriedly pushed Qifu away, faced with the utterly lost and confused expression on her face. Li Yuani could only explain with difficulty. Tonight's situation is a little too unusual, but Qifu gathered her courage and took a step closer to Li Yuani. Li Yuani, I hated you before. I despised you too. You know that, right? But then you suddenly changed, like you'd become a completely different person. I doubted you, and I kept second-guessing everything. But in the end, all I really wanted was one answer. She didn't even dare lift her head as she asked in a trembling voice, "Tell me, are your feelings for me real or not?" Li Yuani stayed silent for a long time, but if he said he felt nothing for her, that would have been a lie. Doubting immediately issued a warning. Detected severe emotional fluctuation from Qifu. Host, answer with caution. Li Yuani instantly told it to shut up and get lost. If he was being honest, at the very beginning, he really had approached Qifu with the mindset of completing a redemption mission. But by now, even he couldn't tell anymore. When she smiled, he felt happy too. When she was hurt, his chest ached with her. Was he still doing a task, or had he already fallen for her for real? He couldn't separate the two anymore. And maybe the moment he couldn't tell the difference, that was already the answer. It was obvious that Qifu had already read that answer in his silence and in his eyes. She stepped forward again and said, in a soft but steady voice, "As a pure Fox clanswoman, I would never give myself to just anyone. From this moment on, you are my only choice." The moment she finished speaking, Qifu suddenly shoved Li Yuani back toward the edge of the pool. Li Yuani was stunned for a second. Was this really the same Qifu he knew? The shy, easily flustered girl from before? Moonlight and rippling water quietly wove together into a scene of romance that belonged only to the two of them. And in that moment, time itself seemed to belong only to Li Yuani and Qifu. Just now, because he wanted to respond to Qifu's feelings sincerely, Li Yuani had thrown the system mission completely to the back of his mind. For once, he only wanted to be himself, not just a transmigrator being dragged along by the pot. Right then, Doubting suddenly delivered amazing news. "Congratulations, host. Qifu has been fully redeemed. Reward, 1,000 points. The system has leveled up by 2 ranks, and the store has unlocked more items." At the exact same moment, far away, Shi Tianrui instantly felt something. A sharp pain twisted through his chest, and his face changed on the spot. The official system immediately issued a warning. "Alert! Host has detected that villainess Qifu has been completely purified." Shi Tianrui gritted his teeth. "Damn it, what do we do now?" The official system quickly produced a solution. "You must redeem 1 more villainess ahead of schedule and save up 3,000 points to unlock the level 6 store. At that point, the system will be able to purchase a forced reversal item and restore Qifu's corruption level." Shi Tianrui made his decision at once. "Lock on to Quan Yue in Yangshan City. I'm making my move immediately." Meanwhile, on the other side, Qifu suddenly seemed to come back to her senses and scrambled to her feet, in confusion. I still mean to go out with Aunt Chun today to take care of something." Seeing how flustered she was, Li Yuani couldn't help feeling awkward too. He could only say softly, "Tomorrow is your birthday, so well, I'll be waiting at home for you to come back." He had clearly succeeded in redeeming 1 heroine already, and yet Li Yuani couldn't stop a complicated feeling from rising inside him. Somehow, it felt less like he had redeemed her, and more like he was the one who had been changed first. He was still immersed in that rare sense of warmth and happiness, when, Doubting suddenly issued another warning. "Now that the system has upgraded, I can sense the movements of the main system. The main system has arrived. That means the real male lead is already nearby too." Li Yuanyi barely needed to think before concluding that Shi Tianru was almost certainly heading for Quan Yu this time. "Duding, activate teleportation right now. We're heading to Quan Yue's place to stake it out." The luxurious estate in front of him was impressive enough at a glance to make one thing obvious. Quan Yu's status in Yangshan City was definitely no joke. But the moment Li Yuanyi got closer, his heart sank. Damn it, someone was already there. The real male lead had clearly arrived first after all. And Shi Tianrui was currently standing outside the gate, looking deeply annoyed, obviously furious that the great male lead himself wasn't even being allowed through the door. Hiding in the shadows, Li Wanyi couldn't help clicking his tongue in contempt. The guy had some nerve. He already knew Quan Yue despised men, and he still dared to force his way in. The official system, however, immediately tried to calm Shi Tianrui down. "Host, don't rush. "We've detected a scar on Kuan Yue's body. This is a perfect chance to offer her the scar removal ointment we just exchanged for." Hearing that, Li Yuanyi instantly felt the pressure. Shi Tianrui already had protagonist Halo on his side, and the main system's functions were clearly far more complete than anything Dodan could provide. He hurriedly urged Dao Ding inwardly, "Think of something, fast. Doesn't the store have anything like a yin-yang transformation pill, or some kind of item that can temporarily alter how people perceive gender?" To his surprise, Dao Ding really did find something. Yes, for 50 minutes, it can interfere with the target's perception. From the target's first-person perspective, you will be seen as female. Li Yuanyi immediately asked, "Then can I see what I look like from their point of view?" No. He was instantly speechless. Seriously? Why do I feel like this is obviously a trap? But if he wanted to intercept Shi Tianrui first, then no matter how suspicious it felt, he had no choice but to bite the bullet. Li Yuanyi asked one more question. "What happens when the time runs out?" Dao Ding answered honestly, "You will immediately revert to your original form in the target's eyes." He followed up at once. "And it works on Shi Tianrui too?" Dao Ding answered with total confidence. "Relax, it works on him the same way." Li Yuanyi grit his teeth. "Fine. Then Shi Tianrui could be the first test subject." Following the store instructions, he took a deep breath, then forced himself to step out from the shadows. Even then, he was still inwardly panicking. Was that guy already looking this way? Dao Ding quickly encouraged him. "It's fine, host. Just walk over boldly." To Li Yuanyi's surprise, Shi Tianrui's eyes suddenly widened in the next second, like he had just seen something unbelievable. Right after that, the so-called real male lead disgracefully burst into a double nosebleed on the spot. Li Yuanyi instantly felt repulsed. Come on, a grown man staring at him and getting a nosebleed? The whole image was way too disturbing. Dao Ding hurriedly warned him. "Watch your expression. Don't let him notice anything weird." Li Yuanyi could only grind out inwardly, "I know, stop nagging." Meanwhile, Shi Tianrui was already thrilled out of his mind. This was exactly his type. If only one of the heroines he redeemed later could look like this too. Just moments ago, Li Yuanyi had already bought the transformation outfit from the system store. Honestly, even he hadn't expected that after turning into a girl, he'd actually look rather delicate and moving. But the biggest problem still remained. He genuinely couldn't think of a good excuse to approach Kuan Yue. After all, Kuan Yu wouldn't casually attack women, but when it came to men, she struck like thunder. If he wanted to redeem her, then he first had to make her understand that not every man in this world was like the ones she had met as a child. But if he kept approaching her as a man, she'd never give him the slightest chance. On the other hand, if he disguised himself as a woman and started speaking in defense of men, she would most likely just see him as an accomplice to them instead. According to the plot, Kuan Yue still carried a scar from her childhood, and that was the only opening Li Yuanyi could use right now. He deliberately rubbed his eyes red, then walked in while pretending to cry. "This humble girl has something to ask. I beg for an audience with Priestess Kuan Yue." At this moment, there were only 25 minutes left before the disguise wore off. When the guards questioned him, he deliberately acted bashful and said that this kind of matter wasn't suitable to discuss at the gate. The two guards immediately showed sympathy, clearly taking him for yet another woman who had been hurt before. Soon, one of them stepped forward to lead the way. "Come, follow me inside. If little sister has come to see the priestess, then it must have something to do with a man, right? Don't be afraid. The high priestess will definitely uphold justice for you." According to the novel, Kuan Yue not only presided over rituals, but also did everything in her power to help women who had suffered harm. So the first step was simply getting in front of her. Only then would Li Yuanyi have a chance to set up what came next. At this point, there were only 20 minutes left before he would revert. Seeing Li Yuanyi in such a pitiful state, Kuan Yue really did begin to sympathize with him. She even poured him a cup of tea herself and said softly, "Drink some tea first. It'll soothe your throat." It seemed that when it came to women who had been hurt, Kuan Yue truly was very gentle. After reading the plot beforehand, Li Yuanyi had never been able to understand why Kuan Yue's father had been so heartless as to abandon both her and her mother. When she was still very young, her father left in pursuit of greater power. Her mother, who had depended on each other with her, fell completely into despair and passed away in less than a year. From that point on, Kuan Yue wandered alone, until, at the age of 8, she was bought into a household by a male ape clansman. And once Kuan Yue grew a little older, that ape clansman began to harbor vile intentions toward her. She fought desperately to protect herself and barely escaped disaster, only later being taken in as a disciple by the Imperial High Priestess, which was how she became who she was today. By the time Li Yuanyi pulled himself back from those thoughts, he heard Kuan Yue say gently, "If little sister doesn't wish to speak, that's all right too. Drink some tea first. Even a brief moment of peace is still something." Li Yuanyi couldn't help sighing inwardly. She was clearly such a kind girl. That only made him more determined to change the way she saw the world and let her know that there were still more good people in it than bad. But doubting was already frantically reminding him from the side that time was running out fast and the host needed to hurry up. Left with no choice, Li Yuanyi forced himself to start improvising. "Sigh, to be honest, priestess, this matter has to do with one of my distant cousins." Sure enough, Kuan Yue's gaze turned sharp at once. "My cousin runs a small business, and I wanted to go into trade with him. But my family insists that I'm a woman and have no right to go out and make my own way. And now my father wants to stop me by marrying me off to a man 20 years older than I am." Kuan Ye's expression turned cold immediately. "Outrageous. You only wanted to do business, and even then with a relative. How could a father treat his own daughter like this? This is Yangshan City. I will not allow anyone here to force you into something you don't want." After saying that, Kuan Ye actually reached out and embraced him, gently comforting him. "Go back first and talk to your father properly. If he still refuses to come to his senses, I will personally step in on your behalf." Li Yuanyi immediately put on the look of someone finally relieved. "Then I'll have to trouble Priestess Kuan Yue." As a token of thanks, she offered the scar removal ointment and asked Kuan Yue to accept it. But Kuan Yu clearly had no intention of taking it, so he quickly pressed again, saying she had to keep it. This was the second step of the plan after all. As long as Kuan Yue tried it and saw results, the third step would be much easier. With only 1 minute left before he reverted, Li Yuanyi didn't dare waste another second and hurried out of the courtyard. If she found out he was actually a man, she would probably explode on the spot. Only then did Kuan Yue suddenly remember the scar ointment. Her eyes darkened. Who exactly was that person? And how did she know about the scar left on her body from childhood? Li Yuanyi barely made it out in the final second before returning to his original form. As for whether Kuan Yue would actually use the ointment, that depended entirely on how deep her hatred of men really ran. Right then, doubting suddenly warned him, "Hide, now." It had already sensed that Ku Fu was nearby and told him to conceal himself immediately, making sure she wouldn't see him. Li Yuanyi froze for a moment. He clearly remembered Chu Fu saying she wanted to come speak with Kuan Yue, but of all days, why did it have to be today too? What he didn't know was that every move he had just made had already been seen by Ayuan. Murmuring to herself, Ayuan smiled faintly. "Even now you're avoiding a maid. Li Yuanyi, just how many secrets are you hiding?" Then again, a man with secrets is a lot more interesting. Elsewhere, the maid had already gone in to report Ku Fu's arrival to Priestess Kuan Yue. And just like that, the two villainesses met face to face for the first time. The moment Ku Fu entered, she stated her purpose directly and asked Kuan Yu to undo the seal inside her body. Kuan Yue stared at her and said slowly, "A Fox clanswoman, and your surname is Q. You're the Fox clan's princess?" Ku Fu remained calm, her voice flat. "My people fell long ago. I'm no princess anymore." But it was obvious, Kuan Yu had already seen through her. Ku Fu still wanted to restore the Fox clan, so Kuan Yue laid it bare. "In other words, you want revenge for your parents and for your people, don't you?" The moment Kuan Yue hit the heart of the matter, Ku Fu dropped to her knees on the spot. Kuan Yue looked at her and said calmly, "Undoing the seal won't happen overnight. The process will also be extremely painful. I'm not telling you to let go of your obsession, but you'd better think this through first." Seeing the determination in Ku Fu's face, with not a trace of hesitation, Kuan Yu unexpectedly felt a flicker of approval toward her. "Go back and prepare for a few days. When the time comes, I'll have someone notify you." The moment she heard that, Ku Fu's eyes lit up. Meanwhile, back at home, Li Yuanyi was already reaching his limit and hurriedly asked doubting for a solution. There was a way for him to go out and keep redeeming other villainesses without Ku Fu noticing, but it was ridiculously expensive and came with a monthly renewal fee. Li Yuanyi almost choked. "You've got to be kidding. That's highway robbery." Doubting explained it once. "A substitute doll, 100 points per month. It can imitate your expressions and basic movements, and it can answer simple questions from the villainesses. It should be enough to fool them for a short time, but if they press too hard, there's still a chance it'll get exposed." Gritting his teeth, Li Yuanyi finally decided to try it for 1 month first. But the second that 100 points disappeared, his heart ached. To make up for the loss as quickly as possible, he decided to find an excuse and head back to his room right after dinner. He wanted to test it immediately, and see whether Kuan Yu had used the scar removal ointment. No matter what, he had to move faster than Shi Tianri. After all, that guy was the real male lead, and he had already started making his move. Before long, Qifu returned home and rushed over to share the good news. "This is great, Yuani. High Priestess Kuan Ye agreed to help remove my seal." "Really? Then congratulations." But in the very next second, Qifu suddenly said, "Yuani, don't move." She abruptly stepped back and stared at him. "Why do you smell like the High Priestess?" Li Yuani's scalp went numb on the spot. Crap. After coming back from Kuan Yue's place, he had forgotten to wash up first. Du Ding immediately warned him. Negative emotional fluctuation detected from Qifu. Li Yuanyi rolled his eyes inwardly, like he needed Du Ding to tell him that. Even if Qifu had already been completely redeemed, jealousy could still mess with the mission. Qifu kept staring at him, her voice lower now. "Yuanyi, did you go see Kuan Yue?" Li Yuanyi instantly understood that if he lied now and got exposed, things would only get worse. At this point, the only option was to mix truth with lies, and dress the lie up as the truth. He let out a helpless sigh. "Sigh, I really didn't want you to find out. I just wanted to help you." As he spoke, he quickly pulled out another box of scar removal ointment, and said he had wanted to give it to Kuan Yue while asking for Qifu's sake. "But you know how much she hates men. I barely got a few words out before she threw me out. It was way too embarrassing, so I didn't want to tell you. I'm useless. Good thing you managed to solve it on your own in the end." The moment she heard that, Qifu's eyes turned red. She stared at Li Yuanyi in a daze, her voice softening. "You actually went to see her alone for my sake?" The moment Qifu finally returned to her room, Li Yuanyi immediately called Du Ding out and had it bring up the substitute doll he had just bought. The thing looked about as reliable as some cheap $9 free shipping knockoff, so Li Yuanyi had no choice but to spell it out carefully. "Listen up. Your job is to cover for me. Got it? Lie in bed. Pretend to sleep, and don't open the door for anyone, no matter who it is." The substitute doll nodded obediently, pulled the blanket over itself, and started snoring less than 3 seconds later. Li Yuanyi twitched at the sight, but he still let out a breath. "That should do it. Doubting, let's move." At the same time, inside the most luxurious estate in the city, Kuan Yue slowly stepped into the hot spring in the rear courtyard. In that instant, those blurry yet razor-sharp fragments of memory came surging back without warning. Every inch of her skin felt like it was stained with a shadow she could never wash away. Filthy. Every place that disgusting pig had touched felt revoltingly filthy. The nightmare from her childhood was magnified to its limit. Kuan Yue's body began trembling uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Li Yuanyi remained quietly crouched on the rooftop, watching it all unfold. Right then, Du Ding warned him that Kuan Yue's corruption level was rising. Li Yuanyi instantly understood that she must have remembered what happened in the past. Thankfully, she had never actually been violated back then. She had cut that man down on the spot instead. But because of that, her disgust toward men had grown into something close to obsession. Then, in the very next second, something heavy suddenly dropped right beside Kuan Yue. Li Yuanyi nearly jumped out of his skin and hurriedly asked Du Ding what that was. Du Ding's answer made him go blank. It looked like Shi Tianri, the real male lead. Li Yuanyi was speechless. Was that guy seriously making his move now too? Sure enough, Shi Tianri burst out of the water in a miserable state the next second, cursing inwardly the whole time. The jump item had way too much bounce. How the hell had it launched him straight into Kuan Yue's hot spring? The only thing that mattered now was getting out before she saw his face clearly. But Kuan Yue merely flicked her hand, and blazing spiritual power instantly locked Shi Tianri in place. Her eyes were icy, and her voice was even colder. "A male. Do you have any idea what kind of place this is?" Shi Tianrui's scalp went numb. I was just passing by." Kuan Yue gave a cold laugh. "Passing by? Over my head? Guards." Shi Tianrui hurriedly changed his tune, claiming that he had actually come specifically to deliver scar removal ointment to the High Priestess. At the same time, he was frantically cursing his system for screwing him over, but the system sounded wronged too, insisting that the teleport function only sent him to a random spot near the Villainesses. How was it supposed to know Kuan Yue would be bathing at that exact moment? Kuan Yue could not have cared less. Suspicious intentions. Seize him. Shi Tianrui did not dare hesitate for even a second, and immediately activated teleportation. In the blink of an eye, he vanished right in front of Kuan Yu. Kuan Yue's face darkened, as she gave a cold order. Listen carefully. Starting today, security will be tightened. Any male who steps into this estate without my permission is to be thrown straight into the dungeon. No need to report first. Up on the roof, Li Yuanye felt his head start to ache. He was completely dumbfounded. He genuinely could not figure out what Shi Tianrui had even been trying to do there. That guy was supposed to be the real male lead of this story, after all. Li Yuanye was not exactly a die-hard fan of wish fulfillment novels, but even he knew the usual tropes. Normally, the heroine would stumble in front of the hero would think she was special, and then feelings would start to grow from there. But Shi Tianrui's move was completely insane. Brutal, even. Li Yuanye had not even made his move yet, and that guy had already shoved Quan Yue's corruption level even higher. So much for the real male lead's amazing tactics. With Quan Yue's guard against men now maxed out, Li Yuanye decided not to risk exposing himself. He immediately chose to retreat and teleport back home first. The moment Li Yuanye got back to his room, he immediately put the substitute doll away. A second later, Shu Fu's voice came from outside the door. Yuanye, are you asleep yet? Good thing he had made it back in time. But the moment he saw Kufu standing there in a soft, elegant plain dress, he instantly realized tonight was probably not going to be simple. He quickly called her in. Kufu, come on in. Once she stepped inside, Kufu lowered her head and fumbled around in her sleeve for a while. Then, she carefully took out a packet of pastries and said softly, I bought these mung bean cakes for you. I'm not sure if you like them. Li Yuanye's heart practically melted on the spot. I do, he answered without hesitation. If it's from you, I'll like it no matter what. But right after saying that, he noticed her hands were trembling slightly. In a low voice, she admitted, the high priestess said removing the seal would be painful. I didn't show any fear in front of her, but honestly, I'm still scared. Li Yuanye softened his voice and comforted her gently. It's okay. If you need me, I'll stay with you. Not just now, from now on too. Kui Fu looked at him with wide, searching eyes, as if she wanted a promise more than an answer. Yanni, I want you to stay like this from now on. Don't ever turn back into how you used to be. I won't. I promise. Li Yuanye answered immediately. But in his heart, the truth was even clearer. The bastard from before was already gone. Until the day he returned to his original world, he would treat her well. Right then, Duding suddenly brought him good news. Quan Yue's corruption level had dropped, and her affection toward Li Yuanye had gone up by 1 point. Li Yuanye's eyes lit up at once. So Quan Yue really did use the scar removal ointment he gave her? If that was true, he might even get another batch of points by tomorrow morning. But before he could celebrate for long, the real point of the night finally arrived. Kufu sat down beside him awkwardly and murmured so softly, it was almost like she was talking to herself. In a little while, it'll be my birthday. Li Yuanye understood instantly. According to beast folk traits, once it started, Kufu would release highly concentrated pheromones for 7 straight days. Thankfully, Deng Qingshuan was still in hibernation, and Quan Yue had been temporarily stabilized by the ointment. Otherwise, if everything piled up into those 7 days, there was no way he would be able to get away. But right now, there was only one thing he was truly worried about. Could this little werewolf body of his actually handle it? With that in mind, he immediately asked Dao Ding whether the ritual happened in stages or continued non-stop. Dao Ding quickly gave him the answer. It was a staged but ongoing process, and the contract ritual would consume a huge amount of stamina. To reduce the risk of failure, the system strongly recommended buying nutrient fluid to strengthen his physical condition first. Li Yuanye's mouth twitched. The more he heard, the scarier this sounded. Even so, he gritted his teeth and bought it without hesitation. Fine, buy it, and make it a few bottles. The second it arrived, he did not waste even a moment and downed it immediately. Sure enough, the effect kicked in almost instantly, and he felt his energy surge back. At that moment, Kufu suddenly stood up, her voice trembling faintly. Midnight is almost here. Yuanye, I'm about to start changing. Honestly, she did not even need to tell him. Li Yuanye had already caught the rich scent of pheromones spilling into the air, and now, both he and Kufu were fully prepared for the moment that was about to arrive. Li Yuanye knew very well that this moment meant everything to Chu Fu. For this alone, everything he had done to get here had been worth it. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Quan Yue had just applied the scar removal ointment that Li Yuanye had delivered to her in disguise. For the first time in a very long while, a faint smile appeared on her face. Whether the ointment worked or not, at the very least, she had accepted that person's sincerity. But after only a single night, the next morning, Quan Ye stood before the mirror and was stunned with delight to see that the vicious scar which had stayed with her for years had actually faded a little. Her eyes trembled. This ointment works that well? In the very next second, she immediately called out, "Guards, someone, get in here now." Meanwhile, Li Yuanyi got woken up by Doding practically screaming the good news at him. Kuan Yue's affection had gone up by 5, and the points had already been credited. He thought it over for a second, and immediately understood. The scar on Kuan Yue's body had probably faded quite a bit already. Judging from the increase though, she had likely only applied a tiny amount last night. Still, that was already the perfect start. Once the first step worked, everything after that would be much easier. At this rate, she might already be sending people out to look for him. And sure enough, that was exactly what was happening. Her subordinates soon reported that they had searched nearly the entire city and still had not found the young lady from yesterday, which meant she had probably already left town. Kuan Yu frowned slightly. Left town? So she was not from the city after all, or had she secretly followed that cousin of hers and slipped away? But when Kuan Yue thought back to that proud, fiery attitude from yesterday, she ended up smiling faintly instead. So she really was a strong-willed woman. If she truly could not be found, Kuan Yue would not force the matter. Then, all of a sudden, she seemed to think of something and stopped mid-thought. Wait. Take this to the market and ask around. See if anyone is selling this kind of scar ointment. Elsewhere, Doubting was practically worshipping Li Yuanyi by now. It excitedly told him that people all over town were saying the High Priestess was searching everywhere for that young woman. Then it eagerly asked when he planned to start the next step. Li Yuanyi, however, was in no rush at all. He planned to wait until Kuan Yue truly started asking about the medicine before choosing the right moment to show himself. Doubting was still worried Kuan Yu might fail to find any clues and eventually give up. But Li Yuanyi saw the situation much more clearly. Those scars were the shame she had never been able to erase. Now that the ointment had shown real results, there was no way she would let go so easily. A woman like Kuan Yu never stopped once she set her mind on something. Off to the side, Kufu could only look at him helplessly. Yuanyi was talking to thin air again. Then again, he had always been like that. After that, she finally spoke seriously. She had already discussed everything with Aunt Chun. Once a few more days passed and the ritual was fully over, she would go to Priestess Kuan Yu and have the seal removed. Until then, though, Li Yuanyi would probably have a hard time. Li Yuanyi immediately played along with a grin. Hard time? That depends on what you ask of me. One word from you, and I'm all yours. Kufu's face turned red on the spot, and even her voice came out shaky. Aunt Chun is still right there. You can't just say things like that. Watching her react like that made Li Yuanyi's heart go completely soft. How could she possibly be this adorable? The problem was he accidentally said that out loud. Shufu's face flushed even deeper, and Li Yuanyi only then realized he had let his thoughts slip. But then again, it was the truth. His little fox really was absurdly beautiful. After a brief silence though, Kufu lowered her voice and added softly, "Once my power comes back, I probably won't be able to stay by your side all the time anymore." The moment he heard that, Li Yuanyi suddenly remembered the original plot. Once Kufu regained her strength, she would begin contacting her parents' old followers, and within a year, she would lead them in search of the traitors from back then. Thinking of that, Li Yuanyi could only nod obediently and tell her he would always be her strongest support. Even as he said it though, he could not help thinking it made him sound like some abandoned housewife, waiting in the inner chambers. Only then did Kufu, ears red, quietly ask whether yesterday had been hard on him. Naturally, Li Yuanyi was not about to back down now, so he forced himself to act tough and said it was fine, nothing serious. He could handle it. The next second, Kufu suddenly leaned in and gave his forehead a soft little bite. Her lips curled into the sweetest smile as she whispered in a voice soft as cotton, "Thank you, Yuanyi." At the same time, in the bustling marketplace, Kuan Yue's maids were still going around asking for news about the scar ointment, but after checking 7 or 8 different shops in a row, they still had nothing. One of them muttered that if any other search team had found something, they would have signaled by now. But the High Priestess cared deeply about this matter, so no matter what, they had to find the medicine. Hidden in the shadows, Shi Tianri was getting more and more confused by the second. He had followed them around all day and watched them search for both a person and a medicine. At this point, only one thought remained in his head. None of this had happened in the original novel. Was someone secretly throwing the plot into chaos? But the problem was, he had been keeping watch around Kuan Yue's estate this whole time and had not seen a single suspicious person. In the blink of an eye, Kufu's 7-day ritual finally came to an end. She looked even more radiant now, fresh and luminous like a lotus rising from water. Li Yuanyi then told her to deliver the scar ointment to Kuan Yue. Only then did Chufu remember that one of Kuan Yue's guards had asked her about it before, saying the medicine bottle in their hands looked almost exactly the same as hers, and that they had been searching for the source for a long time without finding anything. After taking the ointment, Chufu lowered her head and studied it for a while. The more she looked at it, the more it resembled the exact medicine Kuan Yu had been searching for. Li Yuanyi casually made up an excuse to brush it off. But the truth was simple. He just wanted Kufu to leave a good impression in front of Chanye. After all, when you were asking someone for help, you could not exactly show up empty-handed. He then added that he had already prepared a few other gifts for her too, so she could just bring everything over together. Kufu obediently agreed, but before leaving, she still told him softly that they might be apart for a few days. Maybe only several days, maybe as long as 10 days to half a month, before she could return. Li Yuanyi looked at her and answered gently, "It's fine. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you." At the same time, quite a few female beast folk had already gathered outside Kuan Yue's estate, all of them bringing gifts. But when Kuan Yu looked at those offerings, her expression remained completely unmoved. She only gave them a cold, polite response and said there was no need to go to such lengths. Kufu quickly saw what was going on. None of those gifts had hit the mark, and that was when she remembered the ointment Li Yuanyi had placed in her hands. What if this really was the thing Kuan Yi had been looking for? So, Kufu stepped forward carefully, held out the scar removal ointment with both hands and said, "High Priestess, I have one more gift for you." The instant Kuan Yue saw the bottle clearly, her expression changed. "Where did you get this?" Following the explanation Li Yuanyi had prepared for her in advance, Chufu said that someone in her family had bought it from a traveling physician. Kuan Yue stared hard at the ointment, her voice dropping lower. "You truly mean to give this to me?" Kufu nodded. "Yes, I brought it here specifically for you." Kuan Yue could barely restrain herself and opened the bottle right there, on the spot. One glance was enough for her to confirm it. There was no mistake. This was exactly the same ointment. The chill in her eyes instantly eased, and for once real joy appeared on her face. "Miss Kwafu, as for the method to remove your seal, I may need a few more days to think it through. Perhaps I can find a way to spare you some of the pain." Then she quickly asked another question. "Also, could you ask your family where exactly they bought this from? Which traveling physician sold it to them?" Seeing such a dramatic change in Kuan Yue's attitude, even Kufu was caught off guard. Right after that, Kuan Yu raised her hand and formed a seal, and soon a blood-red stone began to condense in her palm. She handed it to Kufu and explained that it was a bloodstone, infused with her sorcery and nourished with blood energy. If Kufu kept it close to her body every day, it would be extremely helpful when opening the seal. Meanwhile, back at home, Li Yuanyi was dealing with a completely different kind of frustration. The system store had plenty of items, but the truly useful ones were outrageously expensive. If he wanted to speed up the redemption process, he needed to win over more Villainesses and earn far more points. Right then, Dowding suddenly shouted in excitement. Kuan Yue's affection was rising rapidly. One of her stars had officially lit up, and the system had even thrown in a bonus reward of 100 points. Li Yuanyi immediately understood. So even if he stayed out of sight at the early stage, he could still earn her affection. That scar really had been the deepest pain in Chuanye's heart. Dowding, however, was still puzzled. If the scar was starting to fade, did that mean Kuan Yue's corruption level might eventually drop all the way to 0 too? Li Yuanyi shook his head. That scar was only one hurdle in her heart. The real wounds came from her family's tragedy, and everything she had carried for years. Those would have to be untangled one layer at a time. Still, no matter what, this was a very good start. Then another thought crossed his mind. His exclusive store was about to hit level 3. Once that happened, he would unlock 10% discount coupons, and they could even stack up to 5 times. Li Yuanyi's eyes lit up immediately. Wouldn't that make shopping insanely cost-effective from then on? He could not help blurting out, "Doubting for once you actually did something useful." But the next moment, he froze. Wait, why is Kufu back already? And judging from the look on her face, she was absolutely thrilled. Kufu practically threw herself into his arms, unable to hide the joy in her voice. "Yuanyi, the ointment you gave me helped me so much. It really was the exact kind the High Priestess had been searching for." After she confirmed it, her attitude toward me changed immediately. She even said she would try to find a gentler way to remove my seal. And she also gave me a bloodstone. With this, I can open the first layer of the seal on my own. By the time she finished speaking, the way Kufu looked at Li Yuanyi had already changed. Her eyes were going soft and unfocused. overflown with shock, gratitude, and something even more dangerous. In the very next second, Khufu finally lost control of herself and lunged forward, biting him hard. And just like that, the star that had already turned pink suddenly changed again. This time, one of them went red. Doubting was completely stunned on the spot. Once a villainess's true feelings started changing, a red heart was something even it had never seen before. Could a villainess who had already been redeemed actually keep evolving further? Before it could even finish panicking, another system notification dropped. Congratulations, host. In less than 5 minutes, the store had jumped straight to level 3. Li Yuani was instantly overjoyed and scooped Khufu up without thinking. You really are my lucky star. Then, in playful retaliation, he leaned in and bit her back. But the second Khufu remembered Aunt Chun was still nearby, she turned so red, she looked ready to burn up. Not long after that, Khufu began her first real attempt at breaking through the seal. Again and again, she endured the violent surges of blood energy, guiding that force little by little toward the locked nodes inside her body. Standing beside her, Li Yuanyi looked even more nervous than she did, asking over and over how she felt. Khufu lifted her eyes to him and gave him a faint smile. But the moment the words left her mouth, she suddenly dropped to her knees in pain. It was obvious this was the backlash from trying to undo the seal. Her body had gone far too long without channeling such overwhelming power. In her current fragile state, Khufu clearly could not bear it. Li Yuanyi's heart clenched at the sight, and he immediately urged her to stop and rest before trying again. But Khufu bit down and shook her head stubbornly. No, I want to do this in one push and break open the first layer. Then, refusing to back down, she summoned the Bloodstone again. Once more, she used the blood essence inside it to wash over the seal within her body. But after a while, her brows suddenly drew together. In the next moment, the energy quietly dispersed. Looking down at the Bloodstone in confusion, Khufu muttered, "Why did it suddenly stop working?" Li Yuanyi's heart immediately tightened, and his first thought was whether they should go ask Kuan Yue directly. But Khufu quickly explained that it was not the Bloodstone's problem. She'd simply been too impatient and failed to follow the guidance of the sorcery flowing inside it. Since the High Priestess was already preparing a more complete method for her, she did not want to disturb her prematurely. Li Yuanyi could only ask what they should do next. After thinking it through, Khufu decided to enter seclusion for 3 days, calm, and rebalance the blood energy in her body, and then try again. During those 3 days, she could not eat meat and would have to avoid regular meals as much as possible. Li Yuanyi agreed without hesitation. All right, leave everything at home to me. You just focus on your seclusion. But Khufu lowered her voice again. Her cheeks tinted red. Also, Yuanyi, I'm worried the High Priestess might come looking for the ointment. If you hear anything from that traveling physician, please pass the message along to her for me. There'll probably be a lot more I need to trouble you with after this. Li Yuanyi's heart softened instantly. What are you even saying? I'm doing all this because I want to. Before he could finish, Khufu had already thrown herself into his arms. Buried against his chest, she whispered, "Yuanyi, having you really is wonderful." The scene then shifted to the hot spring courtyard in Kuan Yue's estate, where a maid was carefully applying the ointment to Kuan Yue once more. With her eyes lowered, Kuan Yue suddenly asked, "How much ointment is left?" The maid answered at once, reporting to the High Priestess, "It's nearly all used up. If we count it up, there's still almost half of the scarred area left untreated." Kuan Yue fell silent for a moment before giving an order in her usual cool tone. "Then prepare a gift for me. Tomorrow, I'll personally visit Miss Khufu's residence." After all, those scars that had clung to her for years finally had a chance to fade, little by little. Elsewhere, Khufu had already begun her seclusion. Li Yuanyi gently closed her door behind her, and the moment he turned around, Aunt Chun hurried over and asked how the princess was doing. Li Yuanyi explained that there had been a small issue during the sealing process, and Khufu needed to enter seclusion first to stabilize her blood energy. Then, he added that he still had 3 bottles of scar ointment left. If the High Priestess came looking for it, Aunt Chun should hand them over on his behalf first. After all, he was still a man, and it was not convenient for him to appear in front of Kuan Yu personally. He also added that those 3 bottles probably would not be enough anyway, so he would go look for that traveling physician again tomorrow. At the same time, he asked Aunt Chun to make absolutely sure no one disturbed Khufu's room for the next 3 days. And from the way Aunt Chun looked at him now, it was obvious her attitude had already changed. She had clearly accepted the relationship between him and the princess. Li Yuanyi politely thanked her for the trouble as well. But deep down, Li Yuanyi knew perfectly well that 3 bottles of scar ointment would never be enough. Kuan Ye would most likely come again. And while Kufu was in seclusion, he could use that chance to stop by and see Deng Tingshuang, who was still in hibernation. But Li Yuanyi had already worked it all out in his head. He could not give Kuan Ye all the scar ointment at once. He had to follow the plan and reel her in step by step. Once that was settled, he headed off to see Deng Tingshuang, whom he had not seen in a long time. He finally found a chance to visit the King Shuang he had been thinking about the whole time. There were still 2 full months left before her hibernation would end. To make sure she would have what she needed if she woke up hungry in the middle of it, Li Yuanyi not only bought her a thick quilt, but also prepared several platters of food for her. Looking at everything he had left behind for her, Li Yuanyi felt pretty satisfied. In his mind, once Deng Tingshuang woke up and saw all this, she would definitely be touched, and her affection would probably go up by quite a bit. But the very next second, Doubting suddenly shouted that something was wrong. The system had detected Deng Tingshuang's corruption level rising at a terrifying speed. She had clearly fallen into a nightmare, and at this rate, her corruption was about to max out. The problem was that she was still in hibernation, so there was no way to wake her up right now. Li Yuanyi immediately panicked and urged Du Ding to come up with something fast. If this dragged on any longer, Deng Tingshuang would be in danger, and the 2 of them might even get erased by the system along with her. Doubting, however, told him not to panic. There was a way. He could buy a dream entry talisman and enter Deng Tingshuang's dream. It was not even expensive, just 100 points. Li Yuanyi ground his teeth. Unbelievable. Fine. I'll buy it. Very soon, the talisman was purchased successfully, and the system announced that it was now being loaded for the host. Right after that, Li Yuanyi felt his body go limp, and his consciousness started sinking fast. Barely 2.5 seconds later, he had already entered Deng Tingshuang's nightmare. Doubting immediately warned him, "Host, look over there." Following its voice, Li Yuanyi looked over and realized he was seeing Deng Tingshuang as a child. Several grown human men were chasing after her, while she clutched stolen meat tightly in her arms and ran in blind panic. In the next second, she tripped hard over a stone on the ground, and her small, frail body slammed heavily onto the earth. The people behind her rushed over at once, cursing as they came. "Hand it over, you little freak. If you dare sneak into the village again, next time we'll beat you to death." "Ta, if it weren't for the sake of your dead father, do you think you'd have gotten off this easy today?" Watching the scene unfold, Li Yuanyi could clearly feel the resentment rising from Deng Tingshuang little by little. So this was what her childhood had looked like. No wonder she had grown up so suspicious, so guarded, and so starved for security. Li Yuanyi stepped forward at once, reached out, and helped the young Deng Tingshuang back to her feet. "Don't be afraid," he said softly. "I'm here to protect you." Then he glanced at the meat in her arms, and lowered his voice even more. "And, are you hungry?" But the child, Deng Tingshuang, reacted like a frightened little animal, and shoved him away at once. "Who are you? Don't touch me." Yet the moment the words came out, she froze, as if she had suddenly realized this person in front of her was different from everyone else. Only then did Doubting explain from the side that memories inside dreams could be altered and distorted. But Deng Tingshuang's instinctive sense of closeness toward Li Yuanyi would not disappear because of that. Li Yuanyi finally understood, so he reached out and gently rubbed her little head. "I'm not some god," he said warmly, "but I'm someone who came here to protect you. Trust me. I won't let anyone bully you ever again." Hearing that, the young Deng Tingshuang finally chose to believe him and slowly placed her little hand into Li Yuanyi's. After that, Li Yuanyi led her to a relatively safe place and even spent 200 points of his own accord to build her a shelter inside the dream, somewhere she could hide from the wind and rain. But Deng Tingshuang still looked resistant and stared at it uneasily. "That's a human house. I'm not going in," Li Yuanyi quickly explained. "No, it's not their house. I built it just for you. If you feel scared in the future, you can hide in here and let it protect you." At those words, Deng Tingshuang finally threw herself into his arms and hugged him tightly. In a small voice, she asked, "Will you abandon me?" Li Yuanyi answered without a second of hesitation, "No. As long as you need me, I'll show up right away." Hearing that, Deng Tingshuang's rapidly rising corruption level finally began to slow down. The young Deng Tingshuang looked up at him and suddenly asked in all seriousness, "Then when I grow up, can we be together too? Like father and mother were?" She even urged him to answer quickly. Li Yuanyi froze for a second, then could only coax her along. "All right, when you grow up, then yes, we can." But the moment the words left his mouth, Doubting immediately warned him that promises made inside dreams could still leave behind a memory brand. Once Deng Tingshuang woke from hibernation, that attachment would only become stronger. The second Li Yuanyi heard that, his scalp went numb, and he almost wanted to ask whether Doubting had done that on purpose by not telling him sooner. Even so, he still led the child, Deng Qingxuang, into the shelter he had built for her. Only then did this trip through her dream seem to reach a temporary end. But after returning to reality, Li Yuanyi found himself understanding Deng Qingxuang even more. Being forced to relive the darkest part of her past again and again, anyone would have been driven toward darkness by that. Just thinking about how she had grown up all alone made his chest feel heavy. He could not help wondering how much suffering she had endured over the years. All he could do was hope that the shelter in her dream could really keep those shadows outside the door. But before he could even catch his breath, Doubting suddenly screamed again. This is bad. Her corruption level is rising again. Li Yuanyi's whole scalp went numb on the spot. It had only been how long? Doubting sounded panicked too, saying Deng Qingxuang had sunk even deeper this time, and asking what he was supposed to do now. Li Yuanyi clenched his teeth and made the call immediately. What else can I do? I'm going back into the dream. Spending points on my woman? Fine, I'll do it. With that, he lit another dream entry talisman without hesitation. Very soon, he returned to the same dreamscape as before. Li Yuanyi had only just started to calm her down. Don't be scared, Qingxuang, it's me. But before he could finish, a mass of thick black energy suddenly burst out from inside the shelter. Before he could react, his entire body was dragged straight inside by that force. When he finally regained his footing, he was shocked to discover that while only a single minute had passed in reality, 10 whole years had gone by in the dream, and standing at the far end of that black energy was none other than the adult Deng Qingxuang. The little girl who had looked so young just moments ago had, in the blink of an eye, become a grown woman. She shoved Li Yuanyi down and pinned him tightly, her eyes red and her voice overflowing with grievance and resentment. Didn't you say that if I needed you, you'd come? But it's been 10 years, and you never came to see me even once. You lied to me. You're a liar. By the end, tears were already falling uncontrollably down her face. Li Yuanyi hurriedly explained that he had never lied to her. This was a dream in the first place. In reality, only an instant had passed. But inside the dream, 10 years could go by in the blink of an eye. He also told her that she was trapped inside a nightmare right now. If she kept sinking deeper into it, she might never wake up again in the real world. But Deng Qingxuang would not listen, and with red eyes she shot back, "I don't believe you. You're lying to me again." Seeing that, Li Yuanyi could only soften his tone and keep coaxing her patiently. "If I really wanted to lie to you, I wouldn't have come back a second time. And if you truly want to be with me, then you have to leave this nightmare first." Deng Qingxuang stared at him for a long time, as though she was trying to decide whether a single word of what he said could still be trusted. Then, in the next instant, she suddenly threw herself into his arms and clung to him tightly. "Unless you become like father and mother with me, I won't believe anything you say." Her voice trembled as she added, "Mother said that if you truly love someone, you'll agree to perform the ritual with them." Li Yuanyi knew perfectly well that this was still just a dream and not reality, and if he refused her now, her emotions would only spiral further out of control. So, in the end, he could only grit his teeth and agree. "All right, I'm willing. I'm willing to stay with you for this life and every life after. As for the ritual you mentioned, Deng Qingxuang, we'll do it your way." The moment she heard that, Deng Qingxuang lit up with happiness and threw herself into his arms like an overjoyed little rabbit. At the same time, Doubting immediately sent another system notification. The real Deng Qingxuang had stopped blackening and had successfully broken free from the nightmare. Her affection had risen to an unprecedented height, and the system had awarded 500 points. Seeing that he was now only one step away from completely redeeming Deng Qingxuang, Li Yuanyi immediately began making new plans. While Deng Qingxuang was still in hibernation, and Chufu was in closed-door cultivation for 3 days, he decided to use the chance to approach Runlingju next. The original novel had only mentioned that her seal was extremely difficult to break, but the actual process had been written in a frustratingly vague way. So, Li Yuanyi's plan was to first find the Forest Clan High Priestess who had sealed her and figure out the full situation. Doubting responded at once that the coordinates were already locked, teleportation was ready, and the host should brace himself. Not long after that, Li Yuanyi followed Doubting into Forest Clan territory. The second he arrived, Doubting delivered another bit of good news. Quan Yui's affection had gone up by another 0.5. Li Yuanyi was immediately speechless. Only half a point? But after thinking it through, he quickly understood. Tren Yu had most likely already taken the scar ointment from Aunt Chun. and as the scars slowly faded, her affection was naturally climbing little by little as well. Before he could think any further, doubting suddenly warned him that someone was coming. This place was overflowing with vegetation, and on forest clan ground, their perception really did become twice as sharp. Doting even added that Ruan Lingju was one of the best among them. As long as there were trees within 10 miles, they could practically serve as her eyes. Hearing that, Li Yuani immediately slowed his breathing. He was already fairly sure of one thing. There was a very high chance Ruan Lingju had noticed him the moment he stepped in. If that was the case, then there was only one move left. If the enemy stayed still, he stayed still. Li Yuani quickly decided that for today, his priority was simply to scout out the situation. If he got caught, then he would improvise. Unfortunately, in the very next second, his bad luck proved just how accurate his own jinxes could be. Someone stopped him on the spot and demanded to know who he was and why he was sneaking around. Li Yuani reacted fast and instantly made up a cover story, claiming he was a traveling merchant from the werewolf tribes. The other side clearly was not buying it and immediately asked, "A traveling merchant? Then where's your cargo?" Li Yuani could only do his best to make his eyes look as innocent as possible. He replied in a serious tone that his goods were all stored back at his temporary stop. Luckily, he had already planned ahead and prepared a fake stash inside a nearby cave. So he kept the lie going and told them that if they did not believe him, they were free to go inspect the cave and check his goods themselves. Very soon, he was escorted to the largest tree hollow in the Forest Clan settlement. At the same time, a thin vine was quietly trailing after him from the shadows. But the instant it approached the tree dwelling, it slammed into some kind of restriction and was forcibly blocked outside. Ruan Lingju, on the other end of that connection, immediately sensed what had happened. She was clearly annoyed. She had obviously not expected her consciousness to be unable to follow them into the tree house. Inside the main hall of the tree dwelling sat the Forest Clan's high priestess. With a calm expression, she asked what exactly this young werewolf had done. Before the guards could answer, Li Yuani cut in first and deliberately put on an open, harmless expression. "I only heard that your tribe sealed away a very powerful young woman. I happened to pass by, got curious, and looked around a bit." The moment he said that, the high priestess's expression changed dramatically. She was clearly shocked and immediately demanded to know where he had heard such a thing. Li Yuanyan, however, acted even more surprised than she did and casually said that the rumor had already spread outside long ago. Was it possible they truly did not know? The high priestess clearly did not believe him, but she still forced herself to stay composed. She then ordered the guards to take Li Yuani away and keep him under strict watch. At dawn, she would personally verify his identity. Once he was locked up, Li Yuani immediately had Doting bring out the substitute doll. The moment Doting saw that look on his face, it knew he was scheming again. The only problem was that it had not yet figured out what scheme he was running this time. So, Li Yuani lowered his voice and explained. He had intentionally mentioned that the secret was already spreading outside, which meant the high priestess would most likely go out in person to verify whether the rumor was true. All they had to do now was leave the substitute in here pretending to sleep, while his real body followed her in secret. The moment he finished speaking, Doting activated teleportation and sent Li Yuani's real body straight to the high priestess's vicinity. In the next second, Li Yuani almost wanted to applaud his own brain. Sure enough, the high priestess had truly slipped out of the settlement in secret. Seeing that, he immediately asked Doting whether the store had any kind of invisibility cloak. Doting answered quickly enough. It did an invisibility cloak for 500 points. Li Yuani nearly twitched when he heard the price, and could not help complaining that it was outrageously expensive. Doubting, sounding oddly offended, pointed out that the item was reusable. Use it a few times and it would pay for itself. Besides, the host had never asked about it before. Li Yuani could not be bothered to argue any further. The moment he threw on the cloak, he told Doting to hurry up and follow them. Soon enough, he watched with his own eyes as the three figures entered an ancient tree. Silver lines coiled around the trunk, giving the whole thing a deeply eerie feel. Li Yuani's heart sank immediately. Could it be that Ruan Lingju's true body was actually sealed inside this tree? At that moment, the high priestess slowly opened her mouth and called softly toward the ancient tree, "Lingzu, are you awake?" In the next second, countless tiny glimmers of light began appearing from the vines, layering over one another and weaving together like spiritual serpents as they approached the high priestess. But, to Li Yuani's shock, one of those vines suddenly drifted toward his position. He froze on the spot. Seriously? He was wearing an invisibility cloak, and she could still detect him? As the vine slowly crept over and started winding up along his clothes, Li Yuani did not even dare breathe. At a moment like this, he absolutely could not make a single sound. At this point, even Li Yuani had to admit that his little scheme just now had been a pretty dirty move. And, right then, a breathtaking figure slowly revealed herself. The girl stood before the ancient tree, her skin carrying an almost translucent jade-green glow. Ruan Lingju lifted her eyes toward the priestess and spoke with open impatience. "Priestess, what do you want with me?" The high priestess clearly panicked, and hurriedly formed a hand seal. But Ruan Lingju only glanced at her with arrogant calm and said, "Relax. Your seal is still solid. I'm not getting out anytime soon." Only then did the high priestess breathe a little easier. Even so, unease still lingered in her heart. This place was supposed to be forbidden ground. Aside from a tiny handful of people, no one should have known about the sealed girl. If word had already spread outside, did that mean there was really a traitor in the tribe? As if she had seen straight through her thoughts, Ruan Lingju coldly said, "Don't worry. The day I really break free, you'll be the first one I kill." Even Doubting was shaken by that. It could not help muttering that her corruption level was terrifyingly high. She was only 2 black stars away from becoming completely unsalvageable. Li Yuani immediately told it to shut up and stay quiet for now. Better to watch first and talk later once everyone was gone. Besides, a villainess like this was exactly the kind that made things interesting. The high priestess was obviously scared pale. She even took 2 involuntary steps back before hurriedly explaining that sealing Ruan Lingju back then had been something she had no choice but to do. Ruan Lingju lowered her eyes and looked down at her with a faint chill in her smile. "Is that so? Because wanting to kill you has always been something I've done, very much on purpose." After saying that, she watched the high priestess hurry away. Once the woman was gone, Ruan Lingju suddenly turned and shot a gorgeous eye roll in Li Yuani's direction. Somehow, even that looked stunning on her. Then she spoke lazily. "Are you still not going to show yourself? They're already gone. They won't be coming back." The moment he heard that, Li Yuani understood that there was no point hiding anymore. Rather than getting dragged out bit by bit, he might as well take off the invisibility cloak himself and stand there like a good boy waiting for questions. Sure enough, the first thing Ruan Lingzu asked him was simple and direct. Why had he been following the high priestess all this way? Li Yuani immediately felt the pressure. Should he tell the truth? If he pissed her off now and sent her corruption even higher, things would get ugly fast. But if he lied now and she exposed him later, that would be even worse for redeeming her. It might even hand Shi Tianri an opening for free. So, after thinking it through, Li Yuani forced himself to look calm and answered with half-truth and half-provocation. "I just wanted to see how exactly you were sealed. What, you got a problem with that?" To his surprise, Ruan Lingju actually smiled. There was even a trace of interest in her voice. "You're surprisingly honest." Then she immediately threw him a second question. "If you had already left my detection range, why did you suddenly appear here again?" Li Yuani smoothly followed up with another lie, saying he carried quite a few artifacts on him, and naturally, that included teleportation tools. That said, while she questioned him, Ruan Lingju was also idly toying with him using her vines, clearly teasing him on purpose. Li Yuani felt increasingly uncomfortable under that treatment. Then, without warning, she got straight to the point. "Are you interested in me?" Before he could even process that, she casually added, "And that little fox who was with you the other day, does she know?" The vines brushed lightly around him, making his whole body tense. Li Yuani could only answer stiffly. She doesn't know." Ruan Lingzu smiled faintly, her eyes full of playful mischief. "I see. So you want to sneak around behind your little fox at home and taste something on the side?" Li Yuani felt a headache coming on immediately. How was he supposed to answer that? It was not like he could just admit he was here to win her over. So he forced himself to hold the line. "Why would I need to sneak around? If I really had my eyes on you, why wouldn't I come openly?" Ruan Lingju laughed again, clearly amused by his answer. "You really are an honest one." But in the very next second, her smile thinned and her tone turned cold. "Still, the person I set my eyes on can only belong to me. If he keeps someone else in his heart, then I'll remove that other person first." Li Yuani's scalp instantly went numb. These villainesses were seriously getting more ruthless one after another. But no matter what happened, Khufu had been the first one by his side. Even if he really got tangled up with Ruan Lingju later, he would never let her hurt Khufu. Ruan Lingju seemed to notice his tension and lazily added, "Why are you so worked up? I never said I'd already fallen for you." She gave him a slow once-over, her tone openly disdainful. "After all, that face of yours is a little ugly and a little abstract. Sorry, but you haven't quite reached the standard that would make my heart race. Only then did Li Yuanyi suddenly remember what Dao Ding had told him before. Ruan Lingju was an absolute face lover to the core. Sure, he could admit that he was not as strikingly handsome as Shi Tianrili, the real male lead. But come on. Even with no effort at all, he should still score at least a solid 7 out of 10. Since when did not being handsome enough mean you were disqualified from redeeming a woman? The thought alone got under Li Yuanyi's skin, so he shot back without hesitation. Miss, don't be too confident. Just because you don't like my face doesn't mean I have to like yours. Dao Ding instantly panicked and warned him that saying something like that could very easily push Ruan Lingju into a rage. But by then, Li Yuanyi could not be bothered listening to its nagging anymore. He simply lifted his gaze and stared straight at Ruan Lingju. Ruan Lingju, sooner or later, I'm going to correct that completely broken taste of yours. One day, I'll make you realize just how shallow and ignorant you really are right now. To his surprise, Ruan Lingju did not grow darker at all. Instead, something strange lit up in her eyes. The moment Li Yuanyi saw that, his confidence came roaring back. He immediately pushed further. You just wait. Once I set you free, I'll make your real body say something soft to me with your own mouth. Ruan Lingju raised a brow and asked with a half smile, something soft? What kind of soft words? Li Yuanyi did not back down in the slightest. Don't worry, when the time comes, I'll teach you word by word. Elsewhere, the guards watching over Li Yuanyi had finally dragged themselves into the second half of the night. They were about to switch shifts when one of them muttered that they should check on the boy inside. The guy had been locked up and still managed to eat and sleep like nothing was wrong. He was probably just some ordinary traveling merchant after all. Otherwise, how could he possibly be that calm? Meanwhile, Ruan Lingju finally realized what Li Yuanyi had meant earlier. He had actually been talking about breaking her seal. She let out a cold laugh on the spot. Then, she lazily waved a hand. How annoying, running into a boring guy like you in the middle of the night. I'm done talking. I'm leaving. Only then did Li Yuanyi quietly let out a breath of relief. At the very least, he had not pushed her into further blackening. Right after that, he had Dao Ding activate teleportation. At the same time, the substitute doll automatically vanished, and the body lying on the couch returned to being his real one. With 2 days still left, Li Yuanyi planned to sleep properly and recover his energy first. He would need to be in top shape if he was going to deal with the Forest Clan people later. The next day, thanks to his flawless performance, the village chief ultimately decided that he really was just an ordinary traveling merchant and agreed to let him sell his goods in the village. Li Yuanyi kept up the act and pretended to be perfectly indifferent, even making a show of leaving. He casually said that if there was nothing else, he would be on his way. But right then, someone behind him called out for him to stop. Li Yuanyi's lips curved slightly. The fish had finally taken the bait. Sure enough, the high priestess cautiously asked whether the rumor outside had really spread that far already. Li Yuanyi nodded and deliberately kept his answer vague, saying that if the chief did not believe him, they could always ask around in Yangshan City. Then he added, as if helpfully clarifying, that his words from yesterday had probably been a little exaggerated. It was not that everyone outside knew. Only some people had heard there was such a thing, while almost no one knew the details. The high priestess had only just started to relax when Li Yuanyi suddenly shifted tone and casually mentioned that he had also heard something about a towering tree. Though he had not caught that part clearly, that single line completely shattered the high priestess's composure. If even the secret of the yin spirit tree had leaked, then things were far worse than she had imagined. She immediately turned and left without another word. On her way out, she sharply ordered the guards at the entrance to follow her at once. And that exact moment was what Li Yuanyi had been waiting for. He immediately urged Dao Ding to follow them. After all, the original novel had mentioned this secret chamber before. A crucial item was hidden inside it, and 5 of them were needed in total to break Ruan Lingju's seal. Only after gathering all 5 could the next step begin. It was not long before Li Yuanyi saw the high priestess press a hidden mechanism in the wall. In the next second, the wall split open from the middle, revealing a dark, hidden passage. Li Yuanyi seized the timing and leaped forward without hesitation. Right as the mechanism started to close again, he slipped in by the narrowest margin and followed them inside. After an unknown stretch of walking through the tunnel, the group finally reached a massive chamber filled with enormous tree roots. The high priestess took out a talisman from her sleeve. The instant she lit the paper, a dazzling brilliance suddenly flared to life deep within the twisting mass of roots. With an extremely careful expression, the high priestess slowly reached her hand into the vortex of light, and only after repeatedly confirming that the spiritual sense within remained stable, did she withdraw her hand and finally let out a breath. In the next moment, she swiftly restored everything to its original state. Li Yuanyi could only stare in speechless disbelief. He had to admit it. The old priestess had hidden that thing ridiculously well. Doubting immediately pointed out that the talisman paper on the high priestess was obviously the key to opening the vortex. At this rate, if they wanted what was inside, they would have to steal it. Li Yuanyi, however, did not seem too bothered by that. Everything he was doing was to stop a villainess from blackening all the way through and dragging the whole world down with her. If the village chief knew the full story, she would probably understand. But right then, Doding suddenly shouted that something was wrong. Ruan Lingzhu's corruption level was shooting up again. Wei Yue was immediately dumbfounded. How was it rising this fast? He did not waste another second and immediately told Dowding to activate teleportation. In the next instant, he was back on the ground above the divine tree. The moment he landed, he shouted toward the seal, "Lingzhu, what's wrong with you? Say something." He truly could not make sense of it. The last time he came, the seal had not reacted anywhere near this violently. Inside the seal, Ruan Lingzhu looked like she was on the verge of completely losing her mind. She kept screaming the same words over and over, "Let me out." Just looking at her made it obvious that this time, she had really been pushed over the edge. Duding could not explain it at first, but Li Yuanyi suddenly thought of a possibility. When the high priestess took the divine stone out just now, the power of the seal must have loosened for that brief instant. The suppression on Ruan Lingzhu weakened with it, and that was what drove her into this berserk state. Then the situation got even worse. Another little black star appeared above her head. Li Yuanyi's scalp went numb. Just one more, and Ruan Lingzhu would blacken completely. In that critical moment, he had no time left to hesitate. He ripped off the invisibility cloak and tried to calm her down himself. He shouted toward the seal, "Lingzhu, trust me. I swear I'll break this seal and get you out of there." But her condition did not improve in the slightest. She was still roaring like a madwoman, "Let me out." What Li Yuanyi failed to notice was that a vine had already shot straight out from her hand. Before he could react, it pierced right through his body. The moment the pain exploded through him, Li Yuanyi merely went numb. He had never expected things to go this wrong, this fast. He was not ready to die here. He immediately shouted at Doubting to come up with something. If he died, Doubting was not walking away from this either. And yet, Doubting actually took the chance to recommend a product, saying the system store sold a revival pill for 1,000 points per bottle, and taking it would instantly restore him. Li Yuanyi exploded on the spot and demanded to know how that was any different from robbery. Doubting, sounding aggrieved, insisted that it was not the one setting the price. The main system did that. Even so, Li Yuanyi still had no choice but to grit his teeth and accept it. No matter what, he could not save points by throwing away his life. The points were deducted, and the item was delivered into his hands almost immediately. Li Yuanyi felt his heart bleeding. The points he had worked so hard to save were vanishing just like that. He looked down and found a tiny green bottle in his hand. There was no time to complain, so he uncapped it and chugged it down in one go. In the very next second, the wound on his body healed at a visible speed. But the problem was far from over. Ruan Lingzhu was still in a berserk state, and anyone who got close would be in trouble. Worse still, her corruption was continuing to rise. If he could not stop it soon, she would be fully blackened in less than an hour, and then everything would be over. Right then, Li Yuanyi suddenly remembered something crucial. Ruan Lingzhu was an extreme face lover. Doubting remembered it too, and it even felt the need to remind him that he himself had said earlier that he should not indulge that kind of taste. Li Yuanyi immediately changed his tune. So what if she was a face lover? That trait was the key to everything. The novel had clearly said that the first time Ruan Lingzhu met Shi Tianri, her corruption level dropped by 2 whole black stars on the spot, which meant one thing. Her obsession with looks was not just important, it was insanely useful. Li Yuanyi then remembered that he had seen a face customization module in the system store before. One use cost 300 points, but once the face model data was created, it could be saved permanently and reused forever. He immediately told Doubting to pull it up and then asked, "Do you have a face model for Takeshi Kaneshiro?" Doubting said yes, but that would require an extra 50 points. Li Yuanyi felt like crying on the spot. The points he had earned from Qingshuang and Qufu were being drained clean in the blink of an eye. Still paying through clenched teeth, he told Doubting to pass a message to the main system for him. One day, sooner or later, he was going to personally delete its lousy code. Complaining aside, he did not waste any time on the real task. The face customization began at once. As the system ran, the new facial model data slowly took shape. The moment it finished generating, Li Yuanyi selected Equip without a second thought. A faint glow spread across his face, and in the blink of an eye, his appearance shot straight to the top tier. So handsome it was practically unfair. In the very next second, Li Yuanyi strode straight up to Ruan Lingzhu and eagerly showed off his brand new face. Ruan Lingzhu, who had been on the verge of going berserk just a moment ago, froze the instant she saw him clearly. Her mind seemed to blank out on the spot, and she looked like a completely different person from the one just seconds earlier. She even flushed slightly and muttered in embarrassment, "Sorry, I got a little carried away just now." Li Yuanyi almost twitched at the corner of his mouth. Unbelievable. So this was how differently she treated a handsome guy. Very soon, Ruan Lingzhu's projection appeared again, and even her voice carried a faint stammer. "You really did get more handsome." Only then did Li Yuanyi finally let out the breath he had been holding. "So, you're willing to calm down and talk properly now?" Ruan Lingzhu gave a soft hum, but her eyes stayed glued to his face. Her voice drifted a little as she admitted, "That's because you're way too handsome right now." She even lifted a hand and cupped his face, as if she were admiring some priceless treasure. Seeing that she could finally communicate normally, Li Yuanyi took the chance to ask whether she was ready to actually listen to what he had to say. But Ruan Lingzhu was nowhere near truly calm. Instead, she puffed her lips slightly at him, looking like she wanted to get even closer. Li Yuanyi could not help admitting that the Takeshi Kaneshiro face model was ridiculously overpowered. At the same time though, it felt like a loss. Getting close to her while wearing someone else's face just did not sit right with him. So he hurriedly told Dowding to switch his face back immediately. There was no way he was going to play that kind of stand-in. Even if Ruan Lingzhu liked this face better, he still had to return to his own appearance. And yet, even at that moment, the faint grassy fragrance she had left near his lips was still lingering. Dowding soon sent him the updated reading. Ruan Lingzhu's emotions had stabilized, and there were no signs of further blackening for the moment. That finally let Li Yuanyi relax a little. So despite all the things she said, once he actually stood in front of her like this, she was not nearly as resistant as she pretended to be. But before he could explain anything further, the force of the seal suddenly yanked Ruan Lingzhu's body back again. All she managed to leave behind was one final line, "I believe you'll come save me." For a moment, only Li Yuanyi and Dowding were left standing there in stunned silence. Carrying that unexpected bit of tenderness with him, Li Yuanyi ultimately chose to teleport back first to the inn in the Forest Clan settlement. At the moment, out of the 5 items needed to break Ruan Lingzhu's seal, he was still missing 3. And both the village chief and the high priestess most likely knew where the remaining ones were hidden. But the problem was obvious too. Once all the sealing items were removed, the seal's power would weaken sharply in an instant, and Ruan Lingzhu would most likely lose control all over again. Given how much hatred she still held toward the Forest Clan, if he simply freed her outright, her corruption would probably rise even higher instead of coming down. In other words, saving Ruan Lingzhu was never going to be a one-step job. The more Li Yuanyi thought about it, the more his head hurt. There were already too many Villainesses to juggle at once. Handling this many tangled lines at the same time really felt like something only a freak of nature like Wei Xiaobao could pull off. According to his original plan, he was only going to stay here until tomorrow afternoon at the latest anyway. Since keeping himself here longer would not lead to an immediate breakthrough, he figured he might as well teleport back first and think things through after returning. Before long, Li Yuanyi returned to the small courtyard where the snow still had not fully melted and gently pushed open the wooden door. But the moment he stepped in, he unexpectedly ran into Aunt Chun, who was stretching in the courtyard, wiping away a light sheen of sweat. Aunt Chun casually told him that High Priestess Kuan Yue had already taken the scar ointment and had even asked her to pass along a message. Once Li Yuanyi returned, she wanted to thank him in person. Li Yuanyi was stunned on the spot. For a second, he almost thought he had misheard. The problem was, he was a man. Aunt Chun thought for a moment before reassuring him that perhaps Kuan Ye's mood had improved because the scar had finally begun to fade. As long as Li Yuanyi kept his distance and knew his limits, nothing too serious should happen. Then she casually asked whether he had found any new lead on that traveling physician. Li Yuanyi smoothly followed up by saying that the physician did not have much scar ointment left either, but he had handed over the prescription and preparation method instead. Aunt Chun nodded and remarked that the man really did sound like a good person. As for Qiufu, she was still in seclusion for now, and there were no immediate problems on her side. Li Yuanyi quickly made up his mind. He would head to the apothecary, buy the herbs himself, and prepare a few fresh batches of scar ointment for Kuan Yue that very night. To push this line forward as fast as possible, He showed up at Kuan Yu's estate right after daybreak the next morning, exactly as planned. It was obvious that Kuan Yue had already left instructions with the guards at the gate. The moment Li Yuanyi gave his name, both guards immediately became far more polite. Hidden in the shadows, Shi Tianrui nearly bit through his teeth when he saw that. Why could Li Yuanyi go in while he himself had been turned away? At this point, he was almost certain that the other transmigrator had landed in Li Yuanyi's body, the side character's role. Even his own system began urging him to come up with a plan fast. Otherwise, all those villainess bonds that were supposed to belong to the male lead would really be pried away one by Li Yuanyi. And if things kept going like this, their risk of being erased by the system would only grow worse. Deep down, Shi Tianrui knew exactly where things had gone wrong. He had trusted his so-called male lead Yahello too much and wasted precious time because of it. But in his eyes, this world was still supposed to be saved by him, Shi Tianrui, the true male lead. The real problem now was that at least some of those villainesses had already started developing feelings for Li Yuanyi. If Shi Tianrui forced his way in at this stage, he would not win anything back. He would only make them dislike him. So he quickly adjusted his strategy. From now on, the goal was no longer to fight Li Yuanyi head-on, but to drive a wedge between him and the villainesses. Once they all started resenting Li Yuanyi, Shi Tianrui could move in and collect everything in one sweep. Meanwhile, on the other side, as Li Yuanyi watched the maid disappear inside to report his arrival, he already had a feeling Kuan Yue probably still would not agree to see him directly today. Sure enough, the maid returned soon afterward carrying nothing more than an exquisitely made cushion. With perfect courtesy, she explained that the High Priestess was still not in a position to meet visitors face-to-face, so young Master Li would have to sit outside the curtain and speak from there. Before long, Kuan Yue's voice drifted out from behind the gauze curtain. The first thing she did was thank Li Yuanyi properly. Li Yuanyi smoothly took the opening and told her he had brought several more jars of scar ointment today. Then, he deliberately added one more detail. These had been made by his own hands. Behind the curtain, Kuan Yue's tone clearly paused. You made them yourself? Li Yuanyi continued without missing a beat, saying that he had gone out of his way to find that traveling physician and learn the preparation method. He then explained that the ointment in the blue jar was made by him personally, while the other two had been bought from the physician before. If Kuan Yu did not mind, she could compare the results herself. As long as she was willing to tell him what differences she noticed, he could continue improving the formula later. After hearing that, Kuan Yue let out a faint breath from behind the curtain and said softly, Young Master Li, you've been very thoughtful, but even so, she still asked the most important question of all. Why was he helping her this much? Li Yuanyi answered with a careful mix of truth and performance. He first said that Qiufu asking Chuan Yue to remove her seal had already put them in her debt. Then he admitted that during Chuan Yue's procession that day, he had happened to be standing beside Qiufu when the wind lifted the curtain of her carriage, and he had accidentally caught sight of the scar on her body. By his own words, that had indeed been an offense. While the two of them spoke, Kuan Yue had already been testing the ointments one by one. It did not take long for her to notice that the faint medicinal scent was almost identical, whether it came from the physician's jars or the one Li Yuanyi had made himself. In the next second, Kuan Yue actually smiled. It was only the slightest curve of the lips, but it was the first time she had ever shown a man that kind of expression. She thanked Li Yuanyi once more, and even admitted that if she continued hiding behind the curtain after this, it would start to look ungracious on her part. But Li Yuanyi answered gently that it was nothing of the sort. The High Priestess already disliked men by nature, so the fact that she was willing to speak with him at all was more than enough respect. A curtain between them could hardly be called arrogance. Hearing that, Kuan Yue's impression of him improved again, and she found herself thinking that this man truly was different from the rest. Li Yuanyi immediately sensed that Kuan Yue's affection for him had gone up by another 0.5. Added to everything from before, it finally made up a full little heart, which meant that on Kuan Yu's route, he had finally taken a truly meaningful step forward. That very night, Khufu's room suddenly burst with light. The surging spiritual energy slammed the door wide open. Standing outside, both Li Yuanyi and Ah Chun widened their eyes in shock. The person before them barely looked like the same Qiufu from before. The softness she used to carry had almost completely vanished, replaced by a cold, enchanting beauty. Ah Chun's eyes turned misty at once, as if she were seeing the Fox Queen of old standing before her again. With the help of the bloodstone Kuan Yue had given her, Qiufu actually broke through 2 layers of her seal in one go, far beyond anyone's expectations. Ah Chun reacted fast. She immediately used the excuse that the princess must be hungry and that she should go prepare food. cleanly leaving the two of them alone together. The moment Aunt Chun left, the cold glamour around Chufu softened all over again. She returned to her usual sweet, gentle self, stared at Li Yuanyi in a daze, and only after 2.5 seconds did she finally whisper, "Thank you. Without your help, I don't know how long it would have taken me to get a chance like this." Then she lowered her voice even more and added, "Thank you, Yi." The moment he heard it, Li Yuanyi's heart stirred. The way she called him now was clearly more intimate than before, and that little nickname sounded far too good. After that, Li Yuanyi told her about going to see Kuan Yu again that day, and said Kuan Yu had promised to treat Kufu's seal as a top priority. But the second he finished speaking, Kufu's body stiffened slightly. In the next instant, she threw herself into his arms, like a little rabbit. Buried against his chest, she asked softly, "Which version of me do you think is better, the old me, or the one I am now?" Li Yuanyi froze for a second, then decided to tease her instead. "It's too dark out here. How am I supposed to tell? Come inside, and I'll take a proper look before I answer." Meanwhile, over on the other side, Kuan Yue had once beckoned him in and said softly, "Young Master Li, why not come inside and speak?" Li Yuanyi was overjoyed inside, of course, but on the surface he still pretended to hesitate, saying that the High Priestess had always disliked close contact with men, and he feared that stepping inside might offend her eyes. Hearing that, the look Kuan Yu gave him carried even more approval than before. But Li Yuan knew perfectly well that if he kept refusing at this point, he would seem too slick. A bit of clumsy sincerity was far easier for Kuan Yue to accept. So he finally lifted the curtain and strode inside. The truth was, he had deliberately weakened the ointment he brought this time just a little. That way he could naturally propose repeated testing and gradual adjustments, creating a perfectly reasonable excuse to meet Kuan Yu again and again. After some discussion, Kuan Yue ultimately decided that on a future date, she would personally come to his house to continue testing the ointment. She even said that she was the one benefiting from all this, so it was unreasonable to keep making young Master Li run back and forth every time. Besides, she could also take the chance to help Kufu unlock another layer of her seal. After thinking it over, Li Yuanyi set the first formal round of testing for 3 days later. Once he left Kuan Yue's estate, he headed straight for Fang's apothecary. On one hand, he needed to buy herbs and keep up appearances. On the other, he also wanted to pick up some tonics for Kufu. At this rate, in half a month at most, he should be able to raise Kuan Yue by another 2 pink hearts. He would probably have fully figured out the key to winning over Kuan Yue's route. Hidden in the shadows, Shi Tianrui watched the entire thing with his heart twisting in frustration. Li Yuanyin was already able to walk in and out of the High Priestess's estate freely, while he, the real male lead, was still being kept outside. But after the first wave of anger, he forced himself to calm down. At least for now, Li Yuanyi was only pushing hard on Chufu and Chuanye. There was still time to turn things around. In Shi Tianrui's eyes, Li Yuanyi's main focus right now was Kuan Yue, and Kuan Yue's deepest concern right now was the scar on her body. If they wanted to drive a wedge between them, then the scar was exactly where they had to strike. He quickly made up his mind. The next time Li Yuanyi made a move on Kuan Yue, they would use that chance to tamper with her and throw the entire route into chaos. Even Handsome Ding almost felt bad saying it out loud, but in the end, it still forced itself to remind him. Host, your point balance is getting dangerously low. At this rate, the services you can still afford in the system store are about to run out too. Shi Tianrui instantly blew up and demanded to know how he was supposed to earn more points. Handsome Ding hesitated for a long time before finally admitting the truth. Right now, the fastest and most direct method was still the same: keep winning over the Villainesses. Shi Tianru cursed the system on the spot, then gritted his teeth and ordered it to list out everything he could still afford. As for the rest, he would just have to find another way somehow. But no matter what, the most urgent thing right now was still to keep following Li Yuanyi, lurk near his home, and wait quietly for the right chance to strike. In the blink of an eye, the promised 3-day appointment arrived. Early that morning, Aunt Chun was already waiting at the entrance for Kuan Yue's arrival. After all, given Kuan Yue's status, it was almost unheard of for her to personally visit an ordinary household. Aunt Chun respectfully invited her inside, served her tea, and explained that the young master and young lady would be out shortly, asking the High Priestess to wait a moment. Before long, Li Yuanyi arrived carrying the scar ointment himself, with Chufu by his side. But the moment Kuan Yue saw how much Kufu had changed, she froze. She almost could not believe her own eyes. This is really Miss Kufu? Kufu, however, remained perfectly composed. With a light smile, she answered calmly, "High Priestess, it is indeed me." Shock flickered clearly through Kuan Yue's eyes. She could not help remarking on how drastically Qiufu had changed in just a few days. If the rest of the seal could truly be undone as well, then perhaps she would finally get to witness the true bearing of Fox Clan royalty. Qiufu answered with a graceful smile of her own, saying she would borrow the High Priestess's auspicious words. Their exchange flowed easily, and the atmosphere between them turned unexpectedly harmonious. Even Li Yuanyi, standing nearby, felt his spirits lift as the faint fragrance in the air drifted past. After that, Li Yuanyi took the initiative to bring the conversation back to business, saying they could start testing the ointment first. He laid out 3 separate batches of Scar ointment, each with a different formula, and invited Kuan Ye to try them one by one. That level of care and preparation immediately put Kuan Yu in a better mood. The system prompt popped up right away. Affection increased by 0.2 plus a 50-point reward. Li Yuanyi instantly took the lesson to heart. Sure enough, if you wanted to satisfy a client, the trick was never to offer only one option. Give them multiple plans to choose from, and not only did it raise their favor, it also made it much easier to lock the decision in. To his surprise, though, Kuan Yue did not plan to test them on the spot. Instead, she intended to take them back and compare them in private. She said that once she had properly observed the differences in effect, she would come back and tell Li Yuanyi the results herself. But before he could respond, the topic naturally shifted to the next layer of Khufu's seal. Kuan Yu smiled faintly and explained that there was actually another reason she had come today. She intended to help Khufu break through yet another layer of the seal while she was here. The moment she heard that, Chufu's eyes rippled with emotion. Her heart went soft almost instantly. More and more she felt that her IE was always thinking of her, all the time, in every little detail. Why was he always this good to her? And in the very next second, one of the little stars above Khufu's head, which had already turned pink before, shifted red once again. Even Li Yuanyi was stunned. So it could work like this too? Right after that, the system did something practically unheard of and handed him a direct reward of 500 points. Watching Khufu and Kuan Ye walk off side by side, Li Yuanyi finally let out a long breath of relief. At the very least, from the look of things now, Kuan Yue really was going to do her best to help Khufu break her seal. Looking back carefully, he realized that by now, he had already formed real connections with 4 different Villainesses. Among them, Khufu's route was basically as good as complete. The one progressing fastest after her was Deng Qingshuang. Unfortunately, Deng Qingshuang still would not wake for another month and a half, which meant that for now, the most likely route to keep breaking through was still Kuan Yue's. As for Ruan Lingju, that route was clearly the most complicated of them all. Li Yuanyi still had no real clue how to fully break her seal. Taking everything together, the steadiest strategy for now was obvious. While Deng Qingshuang remained in hibernation, he needed to push Kuan Yue's affection up to 3 full stars first, of course. Before doing anything else, he also had Doding pull up his personal status panel for a look. And the moment he checked it, Li Yuanyi felt his chest tighten. His points had already been pitifully low to begin with, yet the amount he burned through just to redeem these Villainesses in the early stages was downright outrageous. Li Yuanyi was just about to stretch when he suddenly heard a faint rustling sound from behind him. Hidden in the shadows, Shi Tianrili was practically losing his mind. Kuan Yue had actually come looking for Li Yuanyi on her own. Just how far had that route already been pushed? He kept telling himself to stay calm and not let his emotions drag him around by the nose. The problem was, he could not calm down at all. On the other side, Li Yuanyi seemed to catch the disturbance too, and a slow smile curled at the corner of his mouth. Thinking about it carefully, a lot of system story male leads came with plot armor built right into their bones. But unfortunately for Shi Tianrui, he had run into Li Yuanyi, a transmigrator carrying a bootleg system. The moment that happened, the so-called male lead aura had already been discounted hard. Then again, it was not Li Yuanyi's fault. The real male lead just happened to be this annoying. Meanwhile, Khufu had already closed the door softly behind her. She first offered Kuan Yue a polite greeting and said gently, "Thank you for your care today, High Priestess." Kuan Ye answered with the faintest smile. "Miss Khufu, there's no time to waste. We should begin now. Remove your outer layer first, and let your blood flow move freely." After that, she instructed Khufu to enter the bath together with the power of the talisman. When you feel a spiral of heat forming in your dantian, sink your whole body into the water. Remember this clearly. Do not lose focus. Khufu obediently followed every instruction. Just as Kuan Yu had said, the water gradually grew hotter and hotter, but no matter what, Khufu had to endure it. Very soon, the two of them formed seals together beneath the water, their hands linked, and the force of the talisman was completely activated. in that instant. In the next moment, that power condensed into a sphere of golden light. Through that glow, the seal around Khufu's true core finally revealed itself. Layer upon layer of chains wrapped tightly around her, a shocking sight. But immediately after that, the chains began snapping apart inch by inch, and the second layer of her seal was broken completely. Khufu's whole presence seemed to brighten again, and even her aura became cleaner, colder, and more dazzling than before. After an unknown stretch of time, Kuan Yue had already dressed herself again, and slowly said, "Congratulations, Miss Khufu. Another layer of your seal has been successfully undone." But seeing that Khufu did not leave right away, Kuan Yue paused slightly. "What is it, Miss Khufu? Is there something else?" Khufu gently crooked a finger toward her. "Yes, please come a little closer." But still somewhat puzzled, Kuan Yue stepped closer just as she was asked. Only then did Khufu look at her seriously and say in a low voice, "I truly am grateful, High Priestess Kuan Yu. Without your help, I could never have seen hope of breaking this seal so soon." Then she paused and gave the faintest smile. "So I also hope that from now on, we can stay by Yuani's side together, as the closest of sisters." Outside, Li Yuani had done absolutely nothing but stand in the yard and enjoy the breeze. Yet the system prompt suddenly popped up anyway. Kuan Yue's affection increased by 0.5 with an extra reward of 100 points. Li Yuani was stunned on the spot. How had her affection gone up again? He had not even done anything this time. The minds of these villainesses really were impossible to predict. It was only then that he finally noticed Khufu seemed to have changed a little more again. Her already breathtaking face now carried an even colder, more elegant beauty than before. But no matter how much her appearance or aura shifted, the one thing that had never changed in Li Yuani's eyes was the way she still depended on him. No matter what she might become in the future, in front of him, she would always still be that same Khufu, the one who would throw herself into his arms and call him Ah Yi with a blushing face. Meanwhile, by the hot spring in the High Priestess's residence, Kuan Yu carefully followed every instruction Li Yuanyi had given her earlier that day. The 3 jars of ointment were meant for different areas and different times. Only by using them exactly as directed could the scar fading effect be maximized. What none of them expected was that Shi Tianrui had overheard every bit of it. He immediately gritted his teeth and spent his last 5 points on a packet of illusion incense. Then, deep into the second half of the night, Shi Tianrai finally pinpointed the room where Chuan Ye was staying. Without making a sound, he pierced the window paper and let the smoke drift slowly into the room. Kuan Yu was completely unguarded, and her spiritual awareness quickly began to scatter under the drowsy haze. Once Shi Tianrui confirmed that she had no strength left to resist, he finally relaxed. A cold smile flashed across his mind. "Li Yuanyi, tonight, I'm making sure all your work ends in failure. All I have to do is smear corrosive ointment across Kuan Ye's back. The scars that were already fading will flare up again. When she wakes tomorrow, she'll be furious. And with her own hands, she'll help send you, the side character, straight off the stage." And yet, right at that moment, Li Yuani could not help laughing out loud behind him. He even casually praised him, saying the idea was actually pretty creative. Just moments earlier, Li Yuani had caught this so-called true male lead red-handed. The instant he saw him sneaking into Kuan Yue's room, his temper shot through the roof. And it did not take much to figure out what he was planning. He was obviously trying to make a move through Kuan Yue's scars. Shi Tianrei's expression darkened immediately. He clearly had not expected to run into Li Yuanyi at a time like this. Li Yuanyi simply smiled politely and told him in the calmest tone possible that he really was not cut out for stealth work. Every time he crouched on a rooftop, even a stray dog passing by could probably spot him. As for why he was here, the answer was simple. Protecting Kuan Yue made standing guard every night worth it. He just had not expected to catch him on the very first night. Realizing he could not outtalk Li Yuanyi, Shi Tianrui's face sank, and he prepared to make his move by force. But if he really tried, he would only be serving himself up on a platter. At the same time, the guards outside had already heard the disturbance and were rushing over. Seeing that, Li Yuanyi did not panic at all. He just smiled and asked him how exactly he planned to clean this up. Shi Tianrui only clenched his teeth harder and muttered in a low voice, "I'm the real male lead. I can't lose." The next second, he forcibly called up his system and activated coordinate teleportation. Before vanishing, he threw one last hateful line at Li Yuanyi. "Li Yuanyi, next time we meet, I swear I'll make you pay." Li Yuanyi actually paused for a second. Somehow, that guy had managed to run even faster than he did. Still, The important thing was that Kuan Yue ended the night unharmed. If he had really pushed her back into blackening, Li Yuanyi would have made sure he paid for it dearly. Only then did the guards finally storm in. But all they found was Kuan Ye sleeping sweetly in bed, with no obvious sign that anything had happened in the room at all. By then, Li Yuanyi had already teleported out into the street. And that was when Li Yuanyi truly realized just how low the so-called true male lead was willing to go once he got serious. He had clearly analyzed the current state of the redemption routes before deciding on a move this dirty. After all, those villainesses had already developed real favor toward him. Under those circumstances, anything he did directly would only make them dislike him more. So naturally, his best option was to drive a wedge between Li Yuanyi and the villainesses instead. Which also meant one thing: once the true male lead genuinely decided to get serious, the situation would become much harder to handle. From here on out, Li Yuanyi would have to move even more carefully. The scene shifted again, this time to an inn somewhere in the city. Shi Tianrui flashed back into his room in a miserable state, his chest burning with frustration. He was supposed to be the real male lead, so why did he keep getting outplayed by Li Yuanyi, a mere side character? But just then, a green python suddenly coiled itself around his wrist. Shi Tianrui jumped in shock and barked out, "What the hell? Who's there?" In the next second, Ayuan revealed herself, her presence so overwhelming it felt hard to breathe. She stared at Shi Tianrui coldly and spoke without any preamble. "Before anything else, answer one question for me. What exactly is the deal between you and Li Yuanyi?" Handsome Ding immediately sounded the alarm and warned Shi Tianrui that under no circumstances could he expose the existence of the system. But Ayuan clearly looked like she had been watching him for quite a while. In an unhurried tone, she said, "I noticed long ago that you've been following Li Yuanyi. As far as I remember, Li Yuanyi grew up in the werewolf tribe. You, on the other hand, just appeared there out of nowhere one day. Normally, the two of you shouldn't have had much to do with each other. And yet you've targeted him again and again. Naturally, that makes me curious." Shi Tianrui's heart sank. He instinctively shot back, asking what any of that had to do with her. What bothered him even more was this: who exactly was this woman? Why could he not find any trace of her in the original plot, no matter how hard he checked? But Handsome Ding was just as confused and had no answer to give him. Ayuan kept staring at him, as if she could see right through him. "You and Li Yuanyi, do the two of you each have some invisible friend? And that friend seems to be helping both of you all the time." Shi Tianrui's scalp instantly went numb. This woman was dangerous. She might not know what a system really was, but she had still managed to sense that something abnormal was there. A faint smile flickered through Ayuan's eyes as she added that she could already tell Shi Tianrui and Li Yuanyi both seemed to have some mysterious unseen presence around them. And whatever that invisible friend was, it clearly had extraordinary abilities. In fact, she was rather curious about how she might get to know it herself. That only made Shi Tianrui's headache worse. He had no idea what Ayuan was really after, or even which side she stood on. But one thing was certain: he could never let her learn the truth about his system. So he could only deny it outright, forcing himself to say that there was no invisible friend at all. Everything she had seen was simply his own power. The moment she heard that, Ayuan rose to her feet, and her tone turned icy. "In that case, you're useless to me." Shi Tianrui's heart tightened, and he immediately asked what she was planning to do. Ayuan only gave him a calm, sideways glance. "Relax. I know you have the ability to disappear without warning. If I really wanted to kill you, it would probably take some work. Besides, you and I don't have any personal grudge. I can't be bothered." The moment Shi Tianrui realized she was not attacking right away, he immediately started thinking about pulling her into an alliance. But Ayuan cut him off before he could even begin. "You don't even know what I want. What makes you think you're qualified to bargain with me?" Then she looked him up and down, her contempt impossible to miss. "And honestly, in the sorry state you're in right now, you're not exactly persuasive." Shi Tianrui's face turned green with humiliation. And in the end, the only thing he could force out was, "At least, I'm handsome." Ayuan clicked her tongue in disgust. "I'm not interested in losers." That was the moment Shi Tianrui truly broke inside. How had this so-called real male lead fallen so low that even a snake woman could look down on him like this? Meanwhile, on Kuan Yue's side, she had finally identified which jar of scar ointment gave the best result. Li Yuanyi smoothly followed up by suggesting that from now on, they use that exact formula as the standard and start producing it in batches. He also said that once the next batch was ready, he would personally deliver it to Kuan Yue's estate. Kuan Yu answered with a faint smile, and her affection toward him rose another notch. Still, Li Yuanyi understood one thing clearly. After Shi Tianri's stunt the night before, even if Kuan Yue's people had caught nothing, suspicion had definitely started to spread inside the estate. So from here on out, he had to follow the original rhythm even more carefully and avoid rushing anything. The moment Kuan Yue truly became wary, the rest of this route would only grow harder. Doubting even gave Li Yuanyi a thumbs up. But he could not care less. The only thing on his mind was Deng Qingshuang, whom he had not checked on in way too long, so he immediately told it to activate the coordinates. While Ku Fu was still cultivating, he figured he should take the chance to visit the place where Qingshuang was hibernating. But the moment he stepped into the cave, he froze. She was not there. Where was his Qingshuang? Going by the timing, she should not have fully finished hibernating yet. And there were footprints nearby too, neat, undisturbed, with no sign of struggle. Judging by the size, they were most likely hers. He followed those small footprints all the way out, and before he realized it, he had reached the riverside behind the mountain. Dao Ding suddenly shouted, "Deng Qingshuang is over there, on that big rock." He looked up and saw that the Dark Queen had collapsed again. The cold by the river was brutal, and he instantly panicked, terrified she would freeze there. Why wasn't she waking up? At this rate, something bad was bound to happen. He immediately told Dao Ding to buy a blanket from the system store. Then he saw the price and nearly blacked out on the spot. Why was it so expensive again? But no matter how much it hurt, he still bought it. At least it would help keep her warm. What he didn't know was that while he was fumbling around trying to wrap the blanket around her, Qingshuang had already quietly opened her eyes. After enduring that long stretch of hibernation, the Dark Queen, who had finally awakened, suddenly lunged straight at him. He thought he would see longing in her eyes, but instead, the first thing she did was clamp her hands hard around his throat. Her corruption levels started skyrocketing, and she kept demanding to know why he was bullying her, asking what she had ever done wrong. He shouted her name over and over, but it was like she couldn't hear him at all. There wasn't the slightest response. In the chaos, he had Dao Ding exchange points for another dream entry talisman. Staying alive came first. Fine, 100 points was 100 points. He'd pay it. Soon enough, he forced his way into Qingshuang's dream again. He stood outside and shouted urgently, "Qingshuang, open the door. It's me, I'm your Li Yuanyi." But there was no response at all. At that point, he had no time left to hesitate. He kicked the door open in one blow. But inside the room, there was no sign of Qingshuang anywhere. He went completely blank. His brain almost stopped working. She wasn't in the shelter? Then what the hell was going on? Dao Ding was even more panicked than he was in reality, yelling that if he didn't figure something out fast, the real Li Yuanyi was about to be strangled to death outside. Inside the dream, he could only grit his teeth and search everywhere for her. But the more he looked, the more wrong it felt. This made no sense. This was supposed to be her dream, so how could she not be here? Then, a terrifying thought hit him. What if this wasn't a nightmare episode at all? And if that was true, then of course, she wouldn't be in the dream. The moment that thought crossed his mind, Li Yuanyi immediately tried to shut down the dream transfer and force his way out, but something felt wrong. He had already given the command, yet he was still trapped inside the dream. At first, he thought the system simply had not heard him clearly, so he raised his voice and repeated the order. Only then did he finally realize the truth. It was not that Dao Ding had failed to respond. This dream simply could not be exited on command. Out in reality, Dao Ding was practically losing its mind. It only had one thought left. Was a host this handsome really about to die in such a sloppy way? If Li Yuanyi went down here, Dao Ding would probably be wiped out by the main system right along with him. But at the most critical moment, a sudden turning point appeared. Several strands of dark green mist emerged soundlessly and slowly curled around both Li Yuanyi and Deng Qingshuang. Right after that, the dreamscape that had been spiraling out of control finally started settling down. At the same time, inside a hidden mountain cave, Li Yuanyi pressed a hand against his head, rubbing at the splitting pain with a grim expression. He could not help muttering a curse under his breath. What kind of garbage dream entry talisman was this? Did it seriously refuse to let him out until the effect duration fully ran out? Dao Ding, however, leaned in with a strangely mysterious tone and told him that the person who had actually saved him this time was Ai Yuan. Li Yuanyi went blank on the spot and almost thought he had misheard. Which Ai Yuan? Dao Ding answered with total certainty, the same Ai Yuan they had met back in the tribe, obviously. Li Yuanyi instantly looked annoyed and told it to stop dragging things out at a time like this. Spit it out already. Only then did Dao Ding finish the sentence. It wasn't just that Ai Yuan had saved him. It was that this woman was absurdly strong. Li Yuanyi frowned, but deep down, he still did not seem fully convinced. Strong? How strong could she really be? Doubting lowered its voice and warned him that she did not feel like an ordinary wolf clanswoman at all. Too many things about her felt off. But before it could go any further, it suddenly stopped and said Yuan was already here. This was the first time Li Yuanyi had ever been alone with Yuan. The atmosphere instantly turned subtle. In the end, all he could do was call her name first, a little stiffly. Yuan set down the fruit she had been carrying and smiled at him lightly, with just the faintest teasing edge in her tone. I was starting to think you'd forgotten all about me. Li Yuanyi hurriedly waved that off and said there was no way he would forget her. Even so, he could not stop himself from wondering whether he should ask about Qingshuang first. After all, Deng Qingshuang was from the Dark Tribe, and Yuan had shown up at a very suspiciously convenient moment. But Yuan moved before he could speak, as if he had heard the thought itself. That Dark Tribe girl who's with you, she's already asleep again. At that point, Li Yuanyi stopped pretending and asked her directly. Since she already knew Qingshuang was from the Dark Tribe, didn't she have anything she wanted to ask him? Yuan merely handed him an apple and replied in a light tone, "You were willing to let her leave a mark on you." Then, her lips curved into a smile that was sweet enough to be dangerous, impossible to fully read. If that much is already true, then of course I can guess what kind of relationship the two of you have. Only then did Li Yuanyi understand. Yuan had already noticed the mark Deng Qingshuang had left on him, and had guessed from that alone that some sort of contract bound the two of them together. Yet strangely enough, there was not a trace of disgust or prejudice on her face. Instead, she spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Love, after all, was something beautiful. If you met someone who truly interested you, wanting to keep them by your side, or even wanting to possess them completely, was only natural. After saying that, Yuan's face showed the faintest hint of a smile, so light it was almost impossible to catch, and yet there was something quietly dangerous hidden inside it. Li Yuanyi felt his heart tighten, but he still stated what he wanted without hesitation. He said he needed to see Deng Qingshuang, even if she was still in hibernation, even if she could not be woken right away. He had to confirm with his own eyes that she was safe. By the end, he even cupped his hand seriously toward Yuan and asked her to lead the way. On the way, Li Yuanyi could not help asking Yuan whether she knew what had happened to Deng Qingshuang. But Yuan simply walked ahead in silence and refused to answer. It was only when Li Yuanyi secretly tried to sense the aura around her that Yuan suddenly turned back, as if she had been waiting for that exact moment. "What are you staring at?" How annoying. But in the next second, she smiled softly. "Still, I don't mind. In fact, I'd rather like it if you were interested in me." Li Yuanyi froze on the spot. He had not expected that beneath her calm, unreadable surface, Yuan would be so direct when it came to feelings, almost as if she had no intention of hiding anything at all. Only then did he finally realize that Yuan had been watching his every move for a very long time. Yuan slowly said, "At first you were nothing but a lazy troublemaker in the tribe. Everyone hated you, even the dogs. If an ant passed by your door, you'd probably slap it until it glowed. But after you got hurt, you changed completely. Your personality improved overnight. You started vanishing and reappearing out of nowhere. You even managed to defeat the Dark Tribe attacker who ambushed you with a single punch." At that point, her voice softened. "Are you really Li Yuanyi? You really are fascinating." Li Yuanyi felt his mood sink, and a flicker of irritation rose in his chest. If this was such a big deal, why had she not told him sooner? But Yuan seemed to know exactly what he was thinking, and continued. "And if I had told you, then what? After that, more and more women began gathering around you. Kufu, Kuanyue, and now this Deng Qingshuang." She pressed a hand against her slightly warm cheek, though her tone remained calm. "Kufu is your maid, so I can barely make sense of your relationship with her. But those other women had nothing to do with you at first, yet you still went out of your way to please them." Her attention to detail was so sharp, it made Li Yuanyi's scalp prickle. Yuan looked at him and added softly, "So I think you must have some other purpose." Li Yuanyi's heart jolted. Wait, he relied on coordinate teleportation to move around like this. How exactly did Yuan know so much? But Yuan seemed to dodge that question on purpose and suddenly changed the subject. "Let's go see that Dark Tribe girl first." Before long, they arrived at a nearby cave. But no matter how Li Yuanyi called out to her, Deng Qingshuang remained sunk deep in hibernation, showing no sign of waking at all. Yuan noticed that Li Yuanyi was preparing to bring Deng Qingshuang back to the original shelter. So she calmly warned him, "I'd advise against taking her back there for now. That den may not be safe anymore. At the very least, You should first figure out why she appeared by that river. Li Yuanyi deeply agreed with that, but because of it, his wariness toward Ayuan only grew stronger. He looked at her and tested the waters. If you aren't planning to stop me, Miss Ayuan, then I'll take Qingshuan with me first. Li Yuanyi knew very well that for someone like Ayuan, locking onto him again probably would not be difficult. So he quietly asked Doding whether it can find out what Ayuan really was. Dowding searched for a while, then finally gave him only one answer. It did not know. Li Yuanyi was speechless. He almost wanted to ask what use this lousy system had at all. Still, he pressed on and asked whether it could at least tell if Ayuan was one of the redemption targets. Dowding searched again and reported that the current redemption targets included Feng Zhen, Yi Yan Yi He, and Ko Ying Ying, but there was no character named Ayuan among them. Li Yuanyi's head only grew messier after hearing that. For now, all he could do was suppress the confusion and tell Doding to teleport them to the outskirts of the forest. Meanwhile, back in the small courtyard at home, Chu Fu paused her seclusion and asked Aunt Chun where Li Yuanyi had gone. Aunt Chun stopped what she was doing and thought for a moment, before answering that she had not seen him since early morning. Perhaps he had gone to High Priestess Kuan Yue's estate. But Ku Fu frowned slightly, feeling that something did not add up. High Priestess Kuan Yu had clearly already made an appointment with her, so logically, Li Yuanyi should not have gone to see Kuan Yu at a time like this.